Hello, everybody. Today is January 26th, 2021, and today we're doing government and security news here on the L1 News.
This may be a final goodbye. I don't know. I have faith that there's probably a couple of landmines left behind.
Yeah.
And we'll see this name again. But maybe just, in memory and not. And of course, we will report as soon as he takes his comfy corporate job.
That's coming.
But in the halls of the FCC, not going to see this guy anymore.
Ars Technica reports that, hey, 3 meg uploads, that ought to be enough for everybody, says Ajit Pai in his final report. Now,
I like that they picked the douchiest picture they could find.
No, I think the Reese mug is much worse than this.
Has he ever taken a non-douchey picture?
Yeah.
I don't know if I've ever
The only
seen
way
it.
this could be worse is if he popped his collar.
Some of those where he's in court and he looks a little uncomfortable aren't as bad. When he's smiling, it's just like, your skin crawls.
He is the guy
There's something inhuman there.
He is the guy that said that, according to the law, your ISP has more right to block your right-wing tweets than Twitter.
So, yeah, this is the old, what is it, like 25-3 or something like that?
Yeah.
And obviously, the international viewers, they constantly make the comments, and I don't blame them because it is surprising when they're like, wait, you're the richest country in the world?
And your internet's that terrible?
And I'm paying like $30 for gigabit fiber.
Yeah.
And we were just talking about they doubled my download, and I'm so excited. I'm at 225. So, good riddance. And who will step up? Now, this is not Biden's appointee, but Pai didn't even write it out. He was just like, yeah, okay, guys, I get it. I'll be over at the Verizon building.
But that report that we just talked about, he shouldn't have submitted that. He should have let the incoming team do that. But he's like, nah, I got this.
Oh, he's such a go-getter. But anyway, somebody has to step in and fill the chair shoes until they appoint the new one. And it's none other than the name that we always list as being anti-Pai.
President Biden names Jessica Rosenworcel as the acting FCC chair. She's known for supporting net neutrality and increasing broadband access.
Is this the best picture they could find?
Yeah, so this isn't a great photo of her either. What are the editors doing this week?
Maybe they don't like her. Maybe they're big Pai fans.
Now, I will point out, though, that we're already off to a misstep here because the very first thing that she said is like, oh, we've got a homework gap. We've got to think of the children. And mentally, I'm going to teach you a trick. You should always, anytime you hear think of the children, mentally replace that with don't think about it.
Yeah, this is going to be a disaster because, it's just like, anytime you have that majority.
Yeah.
And it's a 7-person team, or is it 5?
I think
it's an odd
5.
number.
Yeah.
So you always have a majority. But it's just going to be bad in the other direction.
If they say don't think about it, that's the thing you really need to put more thought than usual into. It's like there's something nefarious going on here if you're asking me not to think about it.
How about she said let's talk about the children instead of let's talk about 25 megabits. Because that should be the elephant. The elephant occupying 99.9% of the room. That's what that should be.
Maybe she thinks people don't understand megabits, which is, again, the commentary in and of itself.
Well, I was going to say, it depends on what audience she was targeting with some of her comments, because most people would be like, what does that mean? But they do know when they sit their kid down to do their work at night, and it's like, oh, it takes forever to submit an assignment. They do know that sucks.
So based on that analysis, Krista, what she should have, her first sentence would be, do you want to get your porn faster? And everybody would have like, what? Oh, I'm listening.
Do you want to stream Overwatch with no loss?
And alongside Pai, Donald Trump is out. He will no longer haunt the White House, but he did have that whole week to do a bunch of stuff, and he did a bunch of stuff.
Trump seeks to curb foreign policy, cyber meddling in the last day in office. So they rushed through a bunch of agreements with a bunch of different governments that was basically like, hey, don't do this. And we promise not to do this either.
So if you do, like, a lot of people will rent out cloud hosting that's based in the U.S. to kind of whoever. They're not really worried about it. What do they call that when the web hosters do that? Bulletproof hosting?
Yeah,
it's kind of like that.
Bulletproof is a code word for we'll try to evade law enforcement for you.
So this clamps down on that so that the powers that be can go after the route provider rather than having to chase down somebody who's not even in this country.
We may be seeing more about that next week with the return of Parler on some Russian services.
For a while there, it seemed like Trump was a little too busy with his personal problems to go after China. But I think after everything sort of washed out and he accepted his fate, he remembered that China was on his list.
Trump admin slams China's Huawei, halting shipments from Intel and others, according to sources. So this is Reuters. There's a list of companies here. It's not just Intel. So Intel's not allowed to sell not only to Huawei, but subsidiaries that were supplying Huawei. So the State Department knows. They know who's in bed with who. And that has been blocked. And of course, in response, the article mentions China's responded, and so they've blocked some stuff. Curiously absent is they've not blocked imports of Trump-owned companies.
I think he'll go over there and start over. Was it all just a big ruse, his fight with them? It really is pro wrestling, is it? And the Capitol attack still getting big headlines, and we're kind of slowly uncovering through the obvious surveillance nightmare that the Capitol is exactly who was there. But that's not the only way.
It's social media metadata. U.S. panel seeks FBI, or U.S. panel asks the FBI to review role of Parler in the January 6th Capitol attack. That's really pretty much, there's not really a lot to this story.
That's it.
I'm pretty sure they're already on the task too, judging by the wanted posters that have been coming out daily, which is like, we took this one guy from all these different videos, and here he is from like 17 different angles. Does anybody know who he is? And they're having a really good success rate tracking those people down.
I saw one guy who was there. I guess he threatened his family and was like, "I'll kill you if you tell them." So I think, considering that's a headline and I know about it, I think they found him.
I think they found him.
Some of those cases might be a little thin, though. I think they're kind of just doing whatever they can to round those people up and get them in, sit them down in a questioning room.
Yeah.
But in some cases, the proof, it's a little light.
Capitol riot suspect plotted to sell stolen Pelosi laptop to Russian intelligence, authorities say. So there's a lot here. This is just, yes, this actually really happened. It was Pelosi's aide. It was one of her aides or something, I guess. And this never really got off the ground, but that's kind of messed up, don't you think?
Well,
it's like, oh my gosh, our democracy here is so messed up. I need to mail this to a foreign intelligence service who will be the champion of American ideals?
The American people? Yeah.
But here's the thing. Riley Jim Williams was turned into the FBI by a former romantic partner. Could there be a motive there? The laptop's not been recovered.
Yeah.
No one knows where the laptop is. She claims she doesn't have it. Never did.
Wow.
I don't know. There probably is some footage, but I don't know if they've actually proven that it's her yet.
Oh my gosh.
What do you think a Russian would pay for a Pelosi laptop?
They probably already got it. Probably already got all the info.
Well, what's the price?
$5,000.
That's
really?
not even
You
to
don't
cover
think they would
shipping.
want more?
Yeah, I don't think it would be more. If you'll recall back to, I believe, 2012, there was an interesting case, and it was pretty well proven. I don't think even Apple at that time wasn't really fighting it too bad, but it had to do with ebook price fixing. Remember when Apple was the big ebook leader and everybody was reading on their iPads and stuff like that? Well, that case has some eerie echoes to this one. And by that, I mean, it's exactly the same. That's a short memory.
Amazon.com and the big five publishers are accused of ebook price fixing. Class action lawsuit filed in the U.S. claims the houses have colluded with the online giant to keep prices artificially high. Immediately after the earlier ruling that Ryan was talking about, ebook prices went down because turns out people, if the price is equal, people would rather have the dead tree format. So what's happening is the ebook price is the same as the dead tree format, and the dead tree format gets more expensive. But, after that ruling, the last ruling, not this one, ebook prices went down.
You can almost always get a used copy for half the price of the ebook, which makes no sense.
If you can get a good used book supplier, yeah.
The drone deliveries have been promised. When did they start promising those? Like 2-3 years ago?
I think like 10 years ago.
and we start to, well, I mean, but realistically, like they actually had the technology, but it wasn't the technology that is kind of there, I would say right now, but the regulation has to catch up. And it seems like maybe this is we've had a lot of first steps, I guess, maybe the first full step, not just a baby step.
The FAA has approved a fully automated commercial drone flight, or flights for one particular company, I guess ABC News. This company has, I guess, been able to demonstrate a commercial drone that can fly autonomously, avoid obstacles. It is limited to no more than 400 feet off the ground and a maximum takeoff weight of about 20 pounds. So can schlep around, 10, 15 pound packages at the most.
And only rural areas.
Yeah.
If you're not sure if you live in a rural area, just look for drones. Unmanned drones.
I thought you were going to say cows, but I mean, drone works.
And we have an update in the Florida debacle, which was the whole pandemic scientist being fired.
They've arrested a scientist.
Starting her own. Well, they arrested her once. Now they've arrested her twice.
Arrest warrant issued for ex-Florida data analyst Rebekah Jones, the former manager of her, dashboard for the thing that we can't say because of the algorithm. She's going to turn herself into the authorities. The state would not say what charges she faces. I'm pretty sure that that's not actually constitutional.
So they won't say what charges she faces, but they did confirm. Now, I think they told her this, so we are taking her word for this. Might not be true. That these are not charges related to the warrant.
Yeah.
So you seized something via warrant and then found something unrelated. Is that even legal?
We're going to find out.
Because warrants, I mean, they've trampled all over the Constitution, but the warrant is supposed to have a very clear scope of this is what we're looking for.
Yeah, they did not wait they were supposed to wait for a data analyst or a neutral third party or whatever to separate out the stuff on her electronic devices for what was in the scope of the warrant and everything else because privileged communication with her lawyer was there. They did not do that. She also sued the government for the return of her stuff because this was apparently a civil case. It was a civil case. And they got a warrant, and the judge was like, you can't execute a search warrant on a civil case. It has to be a criminal complaint. So the next day, they had a criminal complaint based on evidence they collected from the civil warrant. So she also doesn't live in Florida anymore, so she had to go back to Florida in order to deal with this. Now, they said that they've got evidence that since she's been arrested, they've released the thing, I guess. They said that they've got evidence that her devices or her computer or something was one of the things that accessed the message board she wasn't supposed to. The same one that the password was posted online, and that she also downloaded a spreadsheet from that.
I think they couldn't prove that, though.
Well, the most recent up-to-date one said that it's one count of accessing something you're not supposed to access.
But it's not that. According to her, it's something else. So I think she might have downloaded something else. And that's what they're going to try to get her on. Anyway, it's ridiculous.
It does seem. I mean, if the scientist has already moved out of the thing, seems like has Florida solved its murder problem? I mean, come on, this is a waste of time.
Oh, you mean like? So you're saying if somebody's already on the way out, don't bother?
Yeah,
like an impeachment.
Yeah.
So if you live in Germany, or perhaps France, Sweden's a rich country, right?
Are you thinking, you get them mixed up, or are you thinking Sweden or Switzerland? I think they both are rich.
They're both rich. Anyway, if you live in one of the more, well-developed, richer countries of the EU, here's some great news for you because, those really cheap Western European video games? You're going to get so many of them.
Valve and 5 PC game publishers have been fined $9.4 million for illegal geo-blocking. So this is the European Union. Now, the European Union said that the 5 publishers cooperated with them really well, so they reduced the fine. But Valve did not cooperate, so they got the maximum fine. Valve, of course, said, no, we cooperated fully. What do you mean we didn't cooperate? Are you insane? Valve says this is going to lead to arbitrage, where people buy a game in one region and then resell it in another. And there's nothing in the law that can stop them, which will mean that game publishers will just sell their game at one price across the entire European Union.
Imagine that. Imagine an item just having a set value and not as much as the market will bear. And speaking of valuations, oh boy, did this one drop so much. But I suppose if you are friends and family of this gentleman, you're just happy that he's actually not dead or in prison for the rest of his life.
Ant Group's valuation seen dropping to 108 billion on Crackdown. It had previously been valued at what, like 144 billion?
I think it was two. The IPO was going to be two something.
He was not Jack Ma, the Ant Group, the leader. He was not towing the line.
I bet he will now, though. And he is back. He made his first public appearance last week in 2 months. So he's not dead.
That's good.
But
Was he talking about the glory of China, or?
I think he was just, like talking about the future because they're probably going to split up his empire.
Do you think, do you think he survived unscathed, or is there some darkness that we don't know about? Like, he lost his beloved pet beagle, or
his feet are just burned and blackened.
Mm.
Oh, he's limping everywhere.
You do the whole like batteries and socks kind of thing. It's like, oh, you can't see those injuries quite as readily.
Do you think it would be a point of pride if you were a bigwig in the CCP and you're the guy who got Jack Ma's kidney?
Jack Ma's punishment is he gives one of his kidneys to the guy that sold his iPhone, or kidneys for an iPhone.
Like Jack Ma may be a good businessman, but his kidneys, those are an unknown. Are they any good?
I mean, he's an older guy, but no, it's not about the function of the kidney. It's just about flexing on everybody that you've got the richest man's kidney. He's not above you because you're CCP power. This one's an interesting story because you got to think, if we had GDPR, how many companies would immediately be violating this?
A lot.
How would every retail store not be?
I expected something completely different when I read the headline, and I read this, and it's like, this sounds perfectly normal. Oh no, have they gotten to me? They've changed my brain, and I didn't realize.
I agree that it is an invasion of privacy, but what's the alternative?
Yeah.
Because this is, you can lose a lot of money here.
ZDNet has the headline, GDPR, German laptop retailer fined 10.4 million euros for video monitoring employees. And so I thought this was something like they had video going in the bathroom or something like that. No, they were refurbishing laptops and other hardware, and sometimes that hardware would just disappear. So they're like, all right, let's put cameras up in the work area where people are working. And that's a GDPR violation, apparently. I really would have loved some more details on this, but I just don't see that as entirely unreasonable.
Well, the way that they put it, the regulators or whatever, is it wasn't anything more than that, but that's just not allowed.
Yeah. So how are you going to do inventory control or asset control? I mean, maybe the people in Germany are on balance much more honest than most other people, but
absolutely not.
The people that I've met that are in certain industries that would be doing this kind of thing, or
I'm sorry, Kristen.
I guess you could do like a check-in system where it's like if you're in the back room, like you have like a key card or something, so they always know who was in and out. But you'd still have to check like the inventory too.
It's Krista. It's almost like you didn't read the story because they pointed out that bag checks, if they had been implemented, would have actually helped them because you need to be able to prove that you took all the measures that you could before you resorted to cameras.
That seems like that would be I guess maybe not the easier solution because you have to make an ID badge for every employee, but...
Yeah, the guy this is not a huge company, it doesn't seem like. And the guy was like, I don't know what to do here. This is a standard security system. We're not like analyzing the data. We're not doing facial recognition. We're just literally trying to keep the laptops. That's all we're trying to do. I don't understand.
We had 10 laptops to refurbish. We refurbished, and now we have 8 laptops. What happened? Oh, I can roll back the tape and see what happened because there's been an incident.
So this could be the first instance, or at least the big instance that we've talked about of GDPR overreach going into kind of satirical levels.
I also thought that this was maybe precipitated by some kind of event, like, something other than laptop theft, because it's like, we fired somebody because they're always goofing off at work. How did you know they were goofing off at work? Oh, we reviewed the video. Okay, maybe something like that would be a GDPR violation. But no, this was just, I don't want to be filmed.
Well, they also pointed out that if there had been something, like if laptops had gone missing, and then they put the cameras in response to that, then maybe that would have been okay. but you just can't do preemptive cameras, which is such a weird. I imagine that legislation is, one of those 10 million pages, and a good
With every
lawyer,
edge case outlined.
yeah, and a good lawyer could pick it apart. But who knows? It's a weird thing to go after, but there are a lot of things that the government should go after, and maybe finally they're looking at this one. Now, I put this in the government section because this is discovery from the big investigation that the government is doing.
Remember that Google has been sued? Uh-oh. Behind a secret deal between Google and Facebook? Facebook was going to compete with Google for some advertising sales, but backed away from the plan after companies cut a preferential deal, according to court documents. So yeah, Google and Facebook got together. It's starting to make sense why we're starting to see more disgruntled employees out of Google, doesn't it?
So they had this, I don't know how clear you guys are on the advertising model, but it's a bidding model. So when a search result triggers one of your keywords, you go into an auction, it's all automated, against everybody else who wants to advertise for that keyword. And if you outbid them, you get it. So Google had that system, and then there was a competing system that was really, really pushing Google out because Google wasn't in your best interest. And this new system was doing that. And Google got wind that Facebook was going to go in that new system. And they're like, no. And they met with Facebook, and suddenly Facebook didn't join that system. Google invented a new system where they got a commission out of every auction.
That's not anti-competitive at all.
And that's
just good business.
They uncovered an email where one of the Google engineers was like, this is an existential threat. And then they uncovered a Facebook one where they gave him the options, and the options were like, go with Google, spend billions and billions, or go out of business. Zuckerberg chose go with Google.
Yeah.
The WhatsApp fallout, we learned, is continuing to rage. And it seems like, week after week, just like all the other big tech debacles.
That was last week.
You get a new entry. Yeah, a new outraged person steps up. This time it's India.
India asks WhatsApp to withdraw a new privacy policy over grave concerns. So they have, but we're going to read more about that in the business section. And it's only temporary.
And WhatsApp is so ubiquitous in India. Everybody's using it. So it makes sense.
WhatsApp I would characterize the reaction from the India article as basically like, we were kind of already doing this. We're just dotting the I's and crossing the T's on letting you know that we're doing this because effectively we're already the same company. But I mean, okay, I guess we can delay that policy.
Yeah, I don't think the Indians are going to give it up unless they ban it.
Yeah,
I guess they have banned a lot of stuff though. That's not a non-trivial threat. And in Turkey, they are showing off perhaps how quickly the danger of this whole deplatforming and that type of thing. Because when you're a big tech company and you take this kind of control, you piss off the people who already have that much control. And they don't like it.
Turkey has slapped an ad ban on Twitter under new social media law. So the headline talks about Twitter, but this actually affects Twitter, Facebook, and they were even talking about Google. But Google is going to play along. Google already has somebody on the ground in Turkey to handle everything on a case-by-case basis. Twitter and Facebook were not willing to put somebody on the ground in order to make things how the people in Turkey want it, or how the ruling class in Turkey wants it.
I thought Facebook did.
It says Twitter, Periscope, and Pinterest.
Yeah. Facebook did.
Okay.
So Facebook and Google both sent a liaison to Turkey to be the person that all the banned stuff goes through. But Google said, we are sending our person, but we will not let them affect our service. So there's heads are going to butt at some point there.
Yeah, but that's more cooperation than Twitter gave them.
Twitter did nothing. Yeah. So Twitter can't run ads, and then there's like a period where they are going to revise it again, give them another chance, and then they might shut them down.
Was this the one where they were also going to do the bandwidth limiting?
Yeah, in May, they get knocked down to like 50%.
Yeah. So Twitter's going to be real slow, which is an interesting mechanic, I think, for them to try to deal with this. Because if the site's down, they'll just work around it. But if it's slow, most people might not realize. It's the old Netflix switcheroo that Comcast did with Netflix. Oh, it'd be a shame if something happened to your packets. They didn't block Netflix. They just slowed it down.
Which is worse, if we're being honest.
In Iran, you might have to worry about something a little worse than slow Twitter. You might have to worry about rolling blackouts, having a bit of a tough time keeping the lights on. And a lot of people in Iran are saying that it is the corrupt government and horrible unmaintained infrastructure that's the problem. The government has a different story.
WAPO says that the massive blackouts that have hit Iran, that's the Bitcoin mining. Oh, the Bitcoin mining has created unprecedented demand for our electricity. No, what are we going to do? It's not the Bitcoin.
They have subsidized electrical power in Iran. It is way cheaper than it ought to be in a desert.
But they've got so much oil from which to generate said electricity.
You think the oil price is about to go back up?
Oh, man, if only they had some nuclear material that they could use for, energy generation.
I'm a little concerned about that pipeline, considering the 11 liters of displacement that's in my garage. I don't want to pay $4 for gasoline. Hungary. You don't hear a lot of tech headlines out of Hungary, but they are stepping up, and it seems to be, along with Merkel and who was the other one? Poland.
Poland, yeah.
I think France was in on it. These are leaders who are a little more right-wing, and they're feeling the heat of all this deplatforming stuff.
Hungary mulls sanctions against social media giants. So the Hungarian Justice Minister Judith Varga, I hope I said that right, on Monday raised the prospect of sanctioning social media firms over what she called systematic abuses of free speech. So this is the banning and the deplatforming and all this other kind of stuff. They haven't taken any specific action. They're just saying, hey, you're on notice.
Yeah, it's definitely a threat.
Oh, no.
If you're, it really is unprecedented that we took away the president's nuclear capabilities with no lawful reason to do so. So I understand, leaders having a bit of trepidation there.
If they had impeached him, they would have had a legal reason to take away his nuclear codes.
I thought they were moving forward with that.
Oh,
in the
yeah,
Senate.
but they hadn't by the time they had done that.
Yeah.
And over in Korea, they've got their own corruption. But the thing about Korea that's kind of unique, well, I don't know how unique it is. Maybe our tech companies are just more varied. We have more of them. But they really only have the one powerhouse. And oh boy, is it in charge of everything. But they are trying to fix that, it seems.
Samsung heir Lee Jae-young is sentenced to 30 months in prison in bribery case. Now, you might be thinking, wait a minute, wasn't he sentenced to 52 months like a couple of years ago? Yes, he was. He was sentenced, and he was in jail. He served about a year, and then he got out because he had appealed. This is the result of the appeal. So the appeal has upheld the conviction, but they did reduce his sentence, technically. So he's got to go back to jail.
And he can't make any major decisions about Samsung during that time. So.
Do you think, is it like hardcore prison or is it like rich people prison?
Sounds like rich people prison.
I don't know what Korean prisons are like in the first place. Some of those international prisons are actually pretty nice. Imagine being his cellmate. You got packages coming every day. Probably eating caviar.
Playing tennis. Out in the yard.
Croquet. All right. Hacking. The interesting thing about hacking is we learn more and more how the hackers are taking advantage of things that you might not think about. Like if you walk into an airport, does this ever enter your mind? But it's a threat. Probably not a threat for you and I, but a high profile person who might need to go somewhere and have the world not know about it. Ooh.
A Chinese hacking group is stealing airline passenger details. Chinese hackers are gathering passenger details from airlines across the world to track high-value targets' movements. So don't fly commercial, I guess, is the lesson there.
How nervous does this make you for Computex this year, Wendell?
It's fine.
You think
you're a high-value target?
Not based on the class that I fly.
You've said some things about Jinping.
Oh, yeah. Well,
I mean, it doesn't take a lot.
Well, if there is it's usually a direct flight, so I should be good there. But the only time that I've done layovers through Japan. So
Does it fly over the South China Sea?
oh no! Oh.
You think they'd risk an international incident to silence you?
I don't care about the rest of the people on that plane. I just want the guy from Level 1 text.
Moving on to security, the SolarWinds thing, as expected, just keeps bearing more and more terrible, rotten fruit.
Malwarebytes said it was hacked by the same group who breached SolarWinds. Now, this is a little bit of a sensationalist headline. They got into a tiny corner of Malwarebytes online Office 365 using some of the access, I guess, they gained. They didn't really seem to do much other than mess around with some of the auth tokens. But this is something Malwarebytes used internally, not their customers. So this could have been bad if it hadn't been noticed, and it was not noticed by Malwarebytes until they were auditing their use of SolarWinds, which they don't actually use extensively, but it was used in one edge case.
I think Microsoft had some kind of internal abuse flag that went up. So they did get the emails, but I don't think it was anything super important. Although if it was, would they tell us?
Yeah. Seemed to be sales-related stuff.
And if you are someone who runs a network and you are stressing because we don't really know what's going on with the SolarWinds stuff, are you affected? Well, luckily, now there's a tool.
FireEye, they've come to our rescue, has released a tool for auditing networks and techniques used by SolarWinds hackers. Azure AD Investigator is now available via GitHub. I was looking into this. I was surprised. I learned something I didn't know, which is like the ADFS. I think it's ADFS. I'm trying to... a little spacey this morning. I haven't had a lot of sleep. The ADFS key, like when it rekeys, you can still use the old key until it rekeys again. So you need to issue 2 successive rekeys to get all the old keys out of there. Because even after you rekey, the old cert will still work until you rekey a second time. It's a feature. It's not a bug. Good stuff.
And FireEye has also released what they believe to be the series of events that led to the breach, and it was very complicated.
Yeah.
That's a lot of steps. That was an impressive attack, assuming they got it right. If you are into modding your router, bad news.
OpenWRT. Oh no, the forum user data has stolen in a weekend data breach. That's one of the oldest forums. I mean, that goes way back, over 10 years. OpenWRT is a long-lived project, so there's a lot of data in there.
Unfortunate. Going to change those passwords. I got to, how your credit cards and your bank will warn you when your email pops up on a dark web breach.
Mm-hmm.
They breached, there was one that just happened that was from 2008.
Wow.
It's like all that old data is out there somewhere and somebody finds it. They're just sifting through it.
Wow.
Apple had a little bit, this is not really security, but kind of is. It's, let's say that this was a tiny gap in one of the walls of the garden and some voles and mice and maybe like a wolverine or two.
I thought this was a nice feature, not a bug. We can enjoy nature.
No, you can't have anything in the garden.
They dispatched the garden assassins. Apple pulls the plug on a user-found method to sideload iOS apps on Mac. So the new M1 Macs can run iPad applications natively, but your application developer has to okay that in their build. Well, this sideloading technique would let you sort of ignore what the developer wanted and load the application on your M1 Mac anyway. Well, Apple has promptly closed that. It's really frustrating.
How sad.
You know, if you do Xcode development, you also can't sideload applications inside the simulated device, which is beyond frustrating. Like, do you know how handy it would be to load Google Chrome inside a simulated iPhone? But Apple, in their infinite wisdom, does not allow this.
Do you know how much terrorism could be accomplished with that?
I know. It's just...
We talked recently about the Microsoft Teams and their little dashboard that they had that basically just spied on employees and gave them a nice little, it's like, oh, you can just look at everything here. It's a nice little dashboard.
And remember when they turned that off and we said they didn't turn it off, they just rolled it back, or they rolled back the visuals?
Well, they didn't turn it off. They changed it a little bit. But now someone at ZDNet has actually gone in and looked at everything, and oh boy.
I looked at all the ways Microsoft Teams tracks users, and my head is spinning. Microsoft Teams isn't just there to make employees' lives easier. It's also there to give bosses data about so many things. Yeah, so all of that the stuff that we reported on, it's all still there. It's just a little bit harder to get to. They didn't turn it off. So you can use Teams to really, really monitor employee productivity.
And there was more pointed out in this one
Yeah.
than we knew before. So basically, it's basically spyware.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, the picture they have, like, in the header of this, I've never seen someone's webcam look that good on Teams. Never. And usually, like, you can hear an air conditioner and their kids screaming in the background. Like,
Nobody's using RTX voice.
yeah, it all sounds terrible.
But the bottom right, she does have like some bottles and stuff in the back. She's the only one that looks like she's in a realistic scenario. Also, look at the perfect depth of field on these two.
Yeah.
Definitely not.
Definitely
Your laptop
not shocked.
camera's not getting that.
Oh no, is it frozen?
Oh,
no.
Video driver.
We've got one more story. One more.
Okay. Are we? Oh,
We're back.
you might have seen some quick transitions there. I apologize, but the video driver was dying.
Ubuntu is ready to report a problem.
Oh, Ubuntu. Good job. And our final story, this is an interesting one because, again, out of Florida, it definitely seems like Florida is taking a different approach to the pandemic. Universally.
A unique approach.
You may have been clued into that with the arrest of the data scientist that's living in another state now.
But the University of Florida is very serious about getting back to school and getting back to normal. So serious that they've built an app.
University of Florida asked students to use an app to report professors who don't teach in person. It's like, are you a professor? We're telling you to teach in person. They're like, I don't want to teach in person. I take care of my elderly mother. It's like, too bad. You need to teach in person.
So if you don't teach it, if you scheduled your class as in person, I think you can still schedule as not in person, but they discourage that. If you schedule it as in person, you don't show up, then your narc students can flag you.
Do you think that that's a sign that the University of Florida is part of like big education, like the for-profit education, and they're addicted to those student loan dollars, and they're maybe more concerned about that than an education?
You're just describing any university, not just University of Florida.
First of all, there's no question about it. And second of all, they're not unique. They made a whole quote. It's like, our first focus is on the students. That's like,
The customer. Not the student, the customer.
That's accurate. The quote is just cut off. Our first, it's the students' money. And the students are more happy to spend money if they get in-person instruction.
But in a lot of cases, it's not even the students' money. It's the taxpayers' money. That's the problem.
Yeah. Well, student loans survive bankruptcy too, so.
Yeah, but
you can't discharge those.
But I'm saying that the university gets their money.
Yeah.
And then somebody else goes after the debt.
Yeah.
But if we took the government out of that equation.
Oh, yeah. The students wouldn't get loans in the first place, which would probably adjust the cost of education.
You know what? We'd have more blue-collar workers, and we'd have less problems with college education price. And I'm sure that there won't be anyone in the comments that disagrees with that.
I don't know. I mean, it's like a plumber can make as much money as me, and I had to waste the better part of a day arguing with somebody that something that was not going right on a web page was a bug in Chrome. And I was like, here's the bug tracker on the Chrome mailing list that shows that this is slated to be included in a bug fix in Chrome 89, which is not out yet.
Well, I'm sure plumbers have a lot of arguments about
I'd
what's
say
going on.
Yeah, but it's
my family is plumbers, and like they often argue not necessarily with the client, but with the other tradespeople on a job site about how things should be done.
Right before they pull the rolled up sock out of the line, and they're like, "Oh, well, you were saying it was something else, right?" No.
I had enough of that the other day. Ooh.
Oh yeah, has the cookie place had a river of literal shit roll through it anymore?
Everything has been magical, like all the rains and the water, and it's just like that torrential rain that we had. It was handled no problem.
Have you had any cookies?
No, I haven't had any cookies.
Are you ever going to go back?
It's questionable.
There were some good cookies.
They are good cookies.
They're overpriced and possibly filled with feces, but they're so good.
I only just got the clean out fixed, so the clean out is now sealed. It's nice.
All right, well,
We'll see you tomorrow with more stuff.
it's going to be business and something.
Something. Oh.
We'll see you tomorrow.
Bye. Okay, we're actually starting now. January 27th. I've immediately forgotten the categories. What are they?
Business and robot.
Robot, that's right. You like psyched me out by saying okay, and I was like, all right, let's go.
Yeah, you keep your eye on the ball, Krista. That's what they always tell you.
There's so much
Yeah, that's
business
what they
news
told
this
me, and I was really bad at softball. when I was a kid.
So the big stories last week were CES, and we got to see what all the big companies were rolling out. When it came to the big CPU companies, they both had impressive presentations, I suppose you could say. But it was pretty clear that under that thin veneer of confidence, there was trouble at Intel. And in fact, they announced a big shakeup with a new CEO, and everybody was saying, is this guy going to have the balls to get in there and start shaking stuff up and really make a change? And it seems like maybe he's just up to the task.
New Intel CEO making waves, rehiring retired CPU architects. So Dr. Cuttress has got a really awesome article here. It sort of goes back. It's like the new CEO, Pat Gelsinger. Yeah, a lot of really exciting stuff going on at Intel in terms of like CPU re-architecture and blah, blah, blah. The thing that's rough here, though, is that these CPU projects, they tend to take 3 years to come to fruition. It's going to take a lot of time. So in 3 years, Intel should be just insane. There's no immediate fix.
Yeah.
There's no
Well,
quick
I mean,
fix.
if the market and the board will be patient for that.
It doesn't seem likely based on our next story.
Yeah. So Intel, again, you got to shake things up. You got to do something. You got to try and get on top of this supply chain issue. So they're changing up some of their foundry stuff.
Intel is outsourcing Core i3 production to TSMC's 5 nanometer process. Yeah, you heard that right. 2021, probably the second half of 2021, TSMC is going to make Intel microprocessors. Now, Intel and TSMC actually go back a long time. A lot of people get that wrong. TSMC has been making stuff for Intel since time immemorial. Chipsets, auxiliary chipsets, stuff like that. Not really CPUs. Well, actually, yes, CPUs, but not like that. So it is different, but it's also the same. So it's not like this is an untried business relationship or Intel doesn't know about TSMC's production process or anything like that. But Intel securing 5 nanometer production capacity in 2021, that's interesting for a lot of reasons.
And the new CEO, you know, obviously everybody's hanging on his words. They want to know what he has to say. And I thought this was a great quote. And one of the things that maybe will give you a little bit of hope if you're a big fan of Intel is that this is sort of signifying the move away from guys in charge who don't understand technology to old school hardcore chip guy.
Intel has to be better than, quote, lifestyle company, unquote, Apple at making CPUs, says new CEO. Well, yeah, I mean, that's what a succinct way to say that. We've been saying that for years. So Intel's answer to the M1 has to be good. And so far, you know, Intel working together with Microsoft to make like the Surface, it's awesome, but it's not M1 awesome, which it really does pain me to say that.
Imagining any hardware company is like a lifestyle company. I mean, I get what he's saying, but I'm imagining like you open up your new CPU box and there's like sprigs of lavender in it. Oh, it's beautiful.
That's basically the iPad unboxing experience,
Yeah, well,
Krista.
but the thing you're missing there, Krista, is that Apple users don't unbox CPUs. They take that step out of it as well. So, yeah. And Google, this is funny because for 3 weeks now we've been talking about this, and we're always like, oh, they can't last much longer. This is going to get them. They're going to have to do something. And Google's just like, I know, make us.
There's still no sign of privacy labels for most Google iOS apps. As I was kind of hinting at in the last episode, Chrome Update 89 fixes a number of bugs, which I am waiting on, and that was scheduled to drop on Wednesday. It did not.
So, yeah, they are very serious about this privacy label stuff. I don't know, what do we think the end game is here? Is it just to wait as long as possible, or do they hope to turn it around somehow?
I think that Google is doing some major refactoring under the hood to try to avoid some of the labels.
I hate.
I would hate to be on that, like, that developer on that project. It's like, oh, dude, we can't remove all this.
Yeah. It's like, we want it to be red, but we don't actually want you to be able to specify the color red using the hexadecimal code. Can you specify the color red some other way?
I want to draw a red line, but I want you to use green ink.
Yeah. This is
What?
That's basically yeah. That's where we are. That's pretty much where we are.
So NBC News is doing this new thing where they do live posting, and then they take an overarching topic and they feed updates, and then you can link to the update, and then it just automatically scrolls. I hate this. This is so terrible, but they've done it. So this is all a big inauguration thing. But the little nugget that we want to see is way down here. That's about Amazon.
NBC News. Amazon has offered to help Biden with the vaccine distribution because apparently they've inherited a non-existent vaccine distribution system. And so Amazon is like, well, we're good at building things. We'll help.
And they certainly have the infrastructure, don't they?
Yeah.
We'll yet to see if the government will take them up on that.
How long is it going to take them to distribute 100 million vaccines? Oh, yeah. No.
They're saying best case
Overnight
is like maybe by the end of fall, we're done. Or we're at a point where, it's okay. Look at this. Look how stupid this is. So like, what?
I don't have that story, I don't think, in my list. So
No,
I can't see it.
No, you do. It scrolled to the top. Don't worry about it.
You have to click C7
Oh.
new posts to experience the full depth of insanity. This is not like whatever user experience architect came up with that. Not good. Not good.
And people linking to your articles and getting confused. Yeah, it's a disaster.
Yeah. I mean, if it confuses us, imagine the geriatric people that are paying for it.
Yeah, exactly. And that is their audience. And Amazon, they have their giant network of warehouses. Now they got the Whole Foods in their warehouses. They're trying to buy up all the JCPenney's and the Searses. And amongst all of that growth, there was one problem that they still have dodged until maybe next week. Because has this...
No, it's a month away now.
But it is, and we talked about this before, it's all hinged on good old Alabama.
Amazon warehouse workers to decide whether to form company's first U.S. union. That is slated for just about a month from now, a little less than a month. It's going to happen in Alabama. 6,000 workers. It wasn't super close, but there were more people that did not want to unionize than I expected. But this is, as we reported the last time this came up, which I think was like 2 or 3 weeks ago, this is likely just to be, the snowball that starts at the top of the mountain that eventually is a village-destroying avalanche by the end.
And while they are fighting unions, they are also deciding who can and cannot do business on their platform. This is perhaps an unusual version of deplatforming, but one of the most threatening when it comes to, income.
Amazon begins removing the deliberately mispronounced QAnon goods for sale after booting pro-Trump Parler from its cloud service.
Quanon.
I was like, have I been pronouncing that in my head the wrong way? But no.
Quality assurance non.
Yeah, I'm just preemptively avoiding problems with the algorithm because that's how we live now. Join us on Patreon or Floatplane. Nervous laughter.
So there's they have t-shirts with slogans and stuff like that, and they saw several of these at the Capitol episode, and they immediately tracked them down. And I think this is all like snitches.
Yeah,
they go and find them on Amazon, and then they email.
The guy that was wearing the I don't want to say any of those words. The guy that was wearing the very offensive T-shirt, like Amazon should have, if they were going to do this, they should have already pulled that shirt. That should not have been a shirt that you could buy on Amazon in the first place. Not a result of getting scrutinized.
I don't even know what the shirt is.
It was like
I know what you're talking about.
It was it was a camp, and it was not a fun
summer camp.
Yeah, it wasn't.
T-shirt, but not actually a summer camp.
And it's like, okay, you can sell that. Oh, it's getting attention now. We should not sell that. That is not acceptable.
Is that one of those things where it's like, celebrate history?
Yeah. Yeah, and it's like, okay, Amazon, that's a little disingenuous. Like, I have a problem with that. If you're not going to let people sell products like that, don't let people sell products like that. Don't wait until it becomes,
But they didn't know. I mean, there's so much on Amazon.
So much crap on there. Like, how are they supposed to police it?
Plus, you make that argument, but you can't make that argument because that is obviously offensive. But that's your decision. I agree with you. I agree with you, but it's your decision. And once you start allowing that, then it becomes whoever is emailing Amazon every day's decision, the Twitter warriors. And then that's just a living hell.
We have to come up with a term for the people that, because there is a certain class of person that really derives enjoyment from eliciting that kind of a response in people. And it's just, I don't really care. I just think it's dumb.
Edgelord.
Obviously.
An edgelord, like a 14-year-old punk kid.
We can't say this because of the algorithm, but it starts with a C and ends with the smallest puppy in the litter. Or rhymes with that, actually. It doesn't end with that. It rhymes with that.
I was like, C-Runt.
I thought you were talking about that character in The Emperor's New Groove for a second, but no.
What the hell is saying The Emperor's New Groove?
I've seen it. You just haven't seen it.
I stopped watching Disney movies after the glory days.
I remember it from when it first came out, so I'd probably get a little bit of a pass.
Well, maybe I can enjoy The Emperor's New Groove in my new Apple VR headset.
Apple's first VR headset is likely to be very expensive, very niche, and nothing to do with augmented reality, as we previously reported. So Bloomberg has a few more details over the last time we reported on this, and Apple is just going to try out the whole glasses with a heads-up display thing and see how that goes.
And if you are a big fan of the iMac, you have languished for many, many years because they really didn't bother to upgrade that product. But now, with the M1, the time has come.
Apple, this is from Bloomberg, Apple is going to completely redesign the new iMac, and the screen is going to be different for like the standalone screen. It's going to be upgradable. There is literally no information of any substance at all in this Bloomberg article. Literally nothing.
But they're going to change the design of the case. That's the important part.
I mean, they kind of have a point because the iMac, like I've got a Sandy Bridge iMac that is so old that it's not even really supported. It'll still run modern Mac OS. You just have to force it. Apple just wasn't willing to put in the 15 minutes of work that it would take to get modern, Big Sur to work on a Sandy Bridge processor. It really was not a lot of work.
They want you to buy the new one.
Yeah, nothing to do with laziness.
Yeah.
That's just planned obsolescence right there.
And they pretty much have all looked the same since then. They've gotten thinner, but, the front vision, the look, pretty much the same.
If Apple can move the entire lineup to M1, how long before they break x86 on a future update?
If the Power Mac transition is anything to go by, they will still be selling Intel Macs at the time they break Intel Mac compatibility.
Oh, that's true. It does take them a long time to flush all that garbage out of the system. And this one might slow them down a little bit more because it's a big number, even for Apple.
Apple fails to overturn Vernet X patent verdict, could owe $1.1 billion. I've looked at this. I kind of think their patent, it's a little bit patent trolly, but Apple has been so just
evil.
Yeah, we might have to go back to your word. They've just been so terrible in the way that they handle this. I almost think that a part of the reason that the judges are doing this is just because Apple has been so vindictive and just so difficult to deal with on this.
It has to do with VPNs, the patent, which is, you think it's like, well, that seems a little patent trolly, but it is Apple.
Boiler Snake agrees.
Snake has thoughts about that.
He hates patent trolls so much. He's had like 4 patents stolen that all had to do with percussion instruments.
If those patents hadn't been stolen, we would still see steam heat in use in residential homes today because it's clean, efficient.
Clean?
Yeah, steam heat.
What are you using to boil the water?
Well, you could use literally anything.
But that's not clean.
You could use solar to boil water. That's actually one of the more efficient ways to do solar.
It always cracked me up whenever somebody's talking about coal energy, because we live in coal country. This is like literally a lot of people around here have black license plates because it's like, I support the coal.
Coal keeps the lights on.
Yeah.
Right.
And So if you don't know how a coal generator works, they grind it into powder and then they burn. It's just like every other generator. They boil water and then giant clouds of steam come out the top. And they love to be like, no. That stuff coming out the top is pure water. It's perfectly clean. It's like, yeah, but you're venting the output from the furnace somewhere else. That's the part that's not clean. But most people don't realize that.
It's also a little bit radioactive because, that's millions of years of carbon that get trapped and, well, other stuff gets trapped along with that. But, yeah, no. New house literally still has the coal burning boiler in it, although it's not hooked up.
It'd be good for the apocalypse.
Yeah.
I mean, if you could easily get it working.
Rehooked, yeah.
Well, the deplatforming is definitely one of the biggest stories, especially when we talk about social media. And we finally have Tim Cook coming out and taking questions and talking about why Parler was taken down.
CNN Business has the article if you want to read it. Tim Cook, why I kicked Parler off Apple's App Store. He said it's not free speech if it's inciting violence, and they didn't have any kind of a policy to respond to complaints, and that's just not responsible behavior, blah, blah, blah.
He did say that should they fix it, and I don't know exactly what that means.
I interpreted that to mean moderation service.
He was not against someday letting Parler back into the App Store. I don't think that's ever going to happen.
I did, the application that I did, gosh, it's probably like 2 years ago now, that had user-submitted content. At that time, they would not let that application on the store unless it had a file a complaint button. It didn't have to work, but it had to be there.
And another sort of blast from the past for Apple. They're getting back. They did the ebook thing, then Amazon took over, and they did the podcasting thing, and then somebody else took over. But wait.
Apple plans podcasting subscription service in threat to Spotify. Well, I've got some good news for Apple. I don't think Spotify is going to be a threat much longer.
So this is going to be a monthly subscription, I guess. It's not going to be super expensive, but Spotify will let you listen ad-supported for free. I don't think that's in the plan here.
Spotify has not done well with the podcasting, though.
In fact, I noticed that Joe Rogan is back on YouTube already.
Huh.
Yeah, he put up a couple of back episodes starting this past week.
Was that always the plan, though? Like,
no.
You get the newest one on Spotify, and then you can watch it on YouTube later? Like what we do with Patreon?
No, well, the original plan was no full episodes on YouTube, but clips on YouTube, I think.
Oh.
But now, because he didn't post on YouTube for a while, and now all of a sudden they're back. And then when we see this headline, you got to wonder, is there a relationship here?
What happened? Spotify's big bet on podcasts is failing, City says. So Spotify wanted to be, your destination for podcasting. And it is sort of crazy that, everybody is getting into podcasting. And so now it's become an exercise in finding diamonds in the rough. Yeah, no, I was thinking it's like level 1, you're a diamond in the rough.
I don't know. We might be a gate, maybe. Maybe Citron.
Well, I'll tell you, we're just not the raw carbon poop that some of this other podcast nonsense is.
So, yeah, I'm sorry, Chris.
You continue first.
No, yeah, I insist.
Oh, okay. Well, I was just going to say, I still think Spotify is like the best music service I've tried.
Absolutely. Yeah. They do a good job. The search is way better, and the recommendations are actually not terrible.
Yeah.
They have a feature where you can say, I don't like this, but it's not everywhere. And that I'm baffled by that. Why?
Yeah.
Why do you not let me say I don't like this? There's so much I don't like. But when I go to Spotify, I've found I'm a paying Spotify customer, and when I open up Spotify, it's because I want to listen to music. So I don't even think about it in terms of podcasts. YouTube is definitely.
I've downloaded some. Like I've downloaded a couple to my phone for like hiking, but I almost never use it for that either. It's almost always music.
Isn't hiking about getting away from all that, Krista, getting into nature and stuff?
When you lay down at night, like it's sometimes nice to listen to a podcast to help you drift off to sleep.
What about the crickets?
Or the coyotes, whichever one you want to hear. My husband, we were laying in bed the other night, and he's like reading, and says like, I heard something die last night. And I was like, wait, what? And there's been coyotes back behind our apartment. We've heard them for the last couple weeks, and I guess one got hold of one last night or the other night.
Wait,
But he just casually mentioned that, like, oh, I heard something die last night. He's like, I
Wait.
think the coyotes got something.
what did they get a hold of?
Oh, we don't know. We could just hear it suffering in the field.
Oh, how
Yeah.
do you think that head to head? How does Rue do against the coyote?
Not well.
You don't think so?
Ruse doesn't have like an aggressive bone in her body. Maybe she was being attacked, but
What if you were being attacked?
I don't know that Rue would do anything. I think Rue would just like panic. She would do what I do, where she just flaps her hands and kind of like, like panics, but doesn't actually like attack the assailant.
So you think then that is nurture and not nature, right? Because I don't think she was born with that.
Maybe she has that like hunting instinct somewhere deep down, but because she's been raised by me, she just like, I don't know what to do. Oh,
I don't know. Maybe some kind of monitor. Maybe you could put some kind of monitor on your dog, and then if you detect an elevated heart rate or something, you got to run out and see if the coyotes are on her.
or out there. She doesn't seem to respond to them. Like we hear them fairly regularly, and she doesn't seem to care.
And if you don't have a dog, perhaps you can monitor yourself, because they're now saying that smartwatches have an interesting new feature.
Smartwatches can help detect the thing that you get infected with days before symptoms appear. Yeah, minor differences in your heart rhythm could be a thing.
Huh.
Now, here's the question. Can you monitor that if you're Apple? Because that goes into medical, right?
Yeah.
That's a dangerous situation.
Oh, Apple would say no. Apple would say that they're the only company that's worth trusting with your medical records.
But I'm saying, if my smartwatch can do this, is that not a medical device?
Yeah.
But is it? I don't think it counts, right?
Apple does not have to obey HIPAA rules
exactly,
with
that's what
your
I'm saying.
exercise data, for sure.
So I don't know. I mean, it'd probably be good for your older family members, I guess.
And the Google Play Store already has about 50 applications that claim to detect that, but they're all malware. But Google Play Store doesn't care.
Yeah, they never have. LG. Have you ever had an LG phone?
Yeah. LG G5.
I've never used one.
It was a great phone. That's the one I'm always going on about because, or wait, no, it was the G3, G5. One of those had a removable battery. Like it looks like a normal phone. It's sleek. It looks well engineered. It's well put together. But you can squeeze some clips on the bottom, and the bottom pops off, and you can replace the battery. It doesn't require anything special.
And that kind of has been their niche, is like really well made, sleekly designed phones in kind of the upper price tier. But they're saying, I don't know.
LG is considering exiting smartphones in 2021. LG has struggled to compete with Samsung, Huawei, and others. If we can't be the best, we don't want to participate at all. See, they've tried to do things like this fancy like swivel phone. I don't know what else to call it. And also at CES, they unveiled the stretch phone. But I don't think the stretch phone got enough. I was describing that before I saw it even. And I don't think that got enough fanfare. And so they're just like, it's not worth the money. I think they would have a product if they would just refocus on a nice smartphone with reasonable specs that's serviceable. People will buy that.
I don't know. I think the smartphone market is much more focused on like trends than the rest of the computer world.
That might be true.
I'd say that's accurate.
Man, because some people are literally considering what are other people going to think about my choice in smartphone as they're purchasing a smartphone.
Do you think we'll ever see a point in time where somebody wants to make an iPhone compatible phone, and they do, but then like the European Union or some core system like that has Apple delineate what the cost of their operating system is versus the rest of their phone, and then just charge the company that wants to make a compatible iPhone the cost of the operating system?
No.
That would be a really interesting way to bring competition back to the market. Here's my generic off-brand iPhone.
Won't happen.
Yeah, probably not.
There's no chance Apple would let anybody else.
Stuff like that happened in the automotive industry, though, with some of the patents on the engine and things like that. People would patent an improvement to an engine, and then you could buy the engine separately, and that was sort of a thing that happened naturally as a result of market forces.
If you love to build little projects and deploy them, the Raspberry Pi is probably your friend. It's great. But it does have one huge limitation when it comes to, 3D print a little container and put your build in there and run your sensors out of it. And that is power, because you got to run an operating system on a Raspberry Pi. And if you're going to use a battery for that, then yeah, if you're looking for weeks and months, sorry, you're gonna have to recharge that thing. So what's the solution? This amazing, the price here is incredible.
Raspberry Pi Foundation launches a $4 microcontroller with a custom chip. So you get all that you see in the picture for $4. You press and hold the button as you plug it in with USB, and you can just copy files to it, and it'll run it. MicroPython and some other stuff. It's got its own sort of programming helper thing. But you can hook up a little tiny LCD screen to it because it's got all those general purpose I/O pins. It's got analog input. It has a lot of features for I/O, interfacing other peripherals. You can build a lot of cool stuff with it.
And it's running the RP2040. That's right. Raspberry Pi is making their own chips.
Ooh. It's only got 264 kilobytes of RAM. But that's fine for MicroPython and some other stuff.
That'll open your garage door, turn on the sprinklers.
Yeah.
I mean, you might have to have a relay, but
you can DIY a bunch of smart home stuff.
if you'll think back, what was it, 2 weeks ago?
Yes.
Google made some waves. They had an AI ethicist. Is ethicist a word?
I think so.
Who was a little bit down on their whole ethics thing. She didn't feel like they were really, especially when it came to AI.
They were being ethically honest.
Yeah, she thought the AIs were a little bit biased, which, that's probably true. She maybe was a little bit annoying, and that didn't help, but they probably didn't handle that correctly, which really makes you scratch your head on this headline.
Bloomberg headline is Google sidelines another AI researcher. This is the second one. So I read a little bit more into this, and it turns out that they were copying lots and lots of data, and that's what set off the flag. And so Google said, hey, you're not supposed to copy lots and lots of data. And she said, no, I have access to this.
Yeah.
So
but
they let her go.
Remember the Waymo thing?
Yeah.
That's kind of...
Yeah.
And they went after that guy.
Yeah, so I think that Google is on much more sure footing with this dismissal than the previous one.
But the mob
Yeah.
is solidly against them on this.
Yes.
So I don't know how much...
I definitely think that first firing overall was a bit of a faux pas by Google. I think they could have handled that a lot better.
Well, yeah. Even just like, okay, let's talk about this instead of freaking out and pulling the trigger. But it does show how afraid of these people they are.
Yeah. Well, people, a lot of the time, any kind of establishment organization like that are afraid of people that are passionate. Like, the best thing is if you can get somebody that's really passionate about whatever it is that they're working on. And yeah, sometimes they're going to be difficult to work with, but 9 out of 10 times they're going to do a better job for you than anybody else will.
I don't know how I didn't put this in government. I guess because it was about cryptocurrency. But it definitely looks like if you're a Bitcoin holder and you're like, yeah, we're going to 100,000.
Not so fast.
This could really get in the way of that.
Treasury nominee Yellen is looking to curtail the use of cryptocurrency. She argues that many cryptocurrencies are used mainly for illicit financing. Nobody tell her that we still use cash in America.
Oh, she's firmly against that.
I know, that's what I'm saying.
When she was Fed chair, she was doing everything she can to kill that. How much wasted money do you think there is in all the stuff that got thrown away yesterday, as we're filming this yesterday, for the office of the president-elect branding?
It's probably easily in the millions of dollars.
Why did we need that?
We didn't. Especially now, because it's like, oh, we're going to have to penny pinch and there's people that are starving and blah, blah, blah.
They should make him use that for the rest of his term.
The free food. Have you been through town when the free food thing is happening? That's gotten so out of control. They set up a second one on the other side of the railroad tracks, and it's also just out of control. And it's just no strings attached, free food.
Well, some people will just show up for free food even if they don't need it.
Well,
But not to this level, though, because, there are lines just to get it.
Yeah.
Oh, listen, things are bad. I don't think anybody's arguing against that.
Yeah.
But it's all better now, right? I've been seeing a lot of headlines. It's like, oh, it's time to open back up.
I don't think so.
We speculated last week about Hyundai. Hyundai made a little press release, and they're like, we're working with Apple. And Apple is just kind of like, we don't talk about that. So everybody was wondering, is this real? Or are they just trying to boost the stock price? And it turns out it's kind of real, but it's not the Hyundai brand itself.
Kia will lead Apple Car project work under Hyundai Motor, report says. The Korean report placing Kia as the brand that will lead the Apple Car work amid rumors that Hyundai Motor is close to finalizing a partnership with the tech giant. I'm sure that these kinds of leaks annoy Apple, and they probably would say something like, if you don't get your leaks under control, we can't partner with you because we literally don't want to spoil anything. And these companies are just not used to operating at that level of secrecy.
Is Kia? I've always thought Kia was considered a really budget brand of car.
Yeah.
That was always my assumption as well.
And
I don't know anything about cars.
That does not fit with the Apple.
I thought about it,
vision.
and I thought that makes perfect sense, though, if you're Apple. If you're Tim Cook and you're looking at this, and you're looking at what you want the Apple brand to be, it probably does make sense that you would partner with the car brand that's going to give you the most margin.
I wonder if they're going to use the Korean manufacturing for some of the stuff and just assemble it here.
I think it's going to be exactly like the computers. The computers underneath the hood, they're Kia, at least before the M1. You know, the Apple specs for like a MacBook Pro or an iMac, it's basically the Kia of laptops. And then they put a really amazing amount of lipstick on it. It's just the same with the cars. I mean, look at the new Mac Pro. It's like $50,000, but it's garbage.
It's going to be tougher to hide with cars, though, because I think people have a better understanding of car performance and convenience and luxury versus electronics.
They don't understand that, you know, the electronics has been gimped in a very specific way.
You start talking about CPU speeds and numbers of cores and caches, and most people don't know what. It's like, I can't. You're rolling out all these, like giant product numbers. It's like, oh, it's got this CPU, and the average person is like, oh, I heard that was good, but they don't. You know,
it's not that the car is good; it's a lifestyle car.
I guess it'll have an amazing entertainment system.
You open the doors to the car, and it's just full of lavender. Magical.
Over at GM. Fresh from the egg, just cleaning the egg off their face with the whole Nikola thing, they're doubling down with their robotic car investments.
Microsoft and GM are going to add $2 billion to Cruise for the robotaxi rollout. Wow, GM is they're just spraying money anywhere they can to try to get those. It's like, oh, we need this. Surely one of these hucksters will pan out.
Will it turn out to be an arterial spray? Because they're making some terrible decisions. My God, that logo. Nobody in the comments liked the logo. I haven't heard from anybody who liked it.
Isn't that their target audience?
Our comments?
Yeah.
GM?
Yeah.
Nah, it's more of the the blue collar type, good old boys at the trucks.
Well, that logo definitely doesn't appeal to them.
No, God, no.
I don't. It's just like there are things you could have done to at least make it a little bit better, but just the gradients and the drop shadows and it just looked amateur.
It was bad. That was terrible. We are when did Cyberpunk come out? Is that November?
It's end of November, early December, I think.
So we've had time to ingest it, think about it, consider what happened during the big failure. And CD Projekt Red has spent internal time, obviously, looking it over, and the CEO has announced he knows what went wrong.
CDPR CEO blames in-game streaming for Cyberpunk's console problems. Native next-gen versions are pushed back to the second half of 2021 amid patching work. So what does he mean by streaming? So when you move from area to area in the game, it's loading stuff as it needs it. It's streaming in what it needs. But it turns out the consoles really struggle with that. And because consoles really struggle with that, things don't really come in the way that they need to. And so that's why everything looks blocky and bad.
He also talked about it was fine in the beginning, but the scope of the game kept increasing so much and the visuals kept getting better on the PC, and they couldn't make the old consoles stream it fast enough.
This is going to be a poster child for this company and other companies to build their games console first. So when we talk about the awful experience of a console port, this is pretty much the nail in the coffin for things that are not console ports from here on out. Every other game developer or game manufacturer is going to look at this and they're going to be like, do you want a repeat of CD Projekt Red? No, it's like, we're building for console first and then we'll port it to PC. And I think that does a disservice to the entire industry, because on PC, the visuals, game engine bugs aside, the visuals and functionality truly are incredible.
The delivery folks.
Oh.
I'm sorry, Krista, go ahead.
I was gonna say, you kind of have the same thing like on the web development side though. Like, you always build mobile first because that's what most people are gonna see your thing on. So, if your primary audience is console, like, as much as we don't like it as people who play on PC, I understand from a business perspective why they would do that.
They made a lot of money from the PC customers.
Yeah.
And they're the PC darlings.
Yeah.
So they really anger their base by doing this. They probably made the right choice there. The delivery folks are still going strong, and people are still getting a lot of stuff delivered. But again, when you come into 2021, a lot of these job protections fell off, and these companies are wasting no time.
Instacart has laid off a bunch of people, 1,900 jobs, including all of the jobs that were unionized.
There were only 10.
Wow.
10 union guys in the whole place.
I wonder if that's going to happen with Amazon. I'm going to predict that as soon as that warehouse in Amazon in Alabama unionizes, that pretty much immediately Amazon is like, look at all these amazing robots. Go home.
Yeah. Well, they're already working on the robots, I'm sure. There's probably a secret warehouse that nobody's allowed to go to that's just for testing the robots.
Now, to be sure, I think that Amazon can definitely afford to pay its warehouse workers better. They're just not going to.
If you have just purchased an Apple M1, you might be feeling good about it, but there are some things that it can't do. Except now, there's one thing that we didn't think it could do that it can, but with a giant catch. This is a lie.
Ubuntu can run on Apple Silicon. Yay! Devs say it's completely usable. Yay! There's two giant catches. One, the graphic subsystem, which is completely undocumented, is basically unusable. So we can boot the kernel and everything is good. It uses something called Corellium. That's not terrible. That's actually pretty much okay. The other giant OMG WTF BBQ is that in order to do this, you have to agree to Apple's terms of service. You have to boot up your Mac, agree to the terms of service, create a user, and that's the only way that you're going to be able to run the program that is necessary to allow you to install third-party applications. Thanks, Apple.
Why would you buy an overpriced system like that and put Linux on it, which is not going to benefit from any of the performance tweaks?
So
you can make a post on our forum, forum.level1text.com.
That's true. It's obvious that people are, we're moving in the security section here. It's obvious, I think.
Is it?
No, we're not. It should have been a transition. But the security-minded stuff is just blowing up because you had a bunch of things happen all at once. The WhatsApp thing was really big, and you've got, the Apple stuff going on. And
Google the baddies?
Yeah, people just seem to be finally waking up to this whole idea that's like, oh, I really need to try to find something that's not a big tech company to use. And they're just flooding into them.
DuckDuckGo surpasses 100 million daily search queries for the first time. That is an historic milestone during the same week when both Signal and Telegram saw a huge influx of new users. That's actually pretty great. Do you think now is the point in history where individual user privacy, like from here forward, user privacy will always be more important to the end user? Or do you think it'll still sort of continue the downward trend?
No, I think this is a temporary spike because it's in people's minds, but the lack of convenience, a lot of them will fall off.
The dead cat bounce of privacy.
Yeah. So I use DuckDuckGo for my search engine on all my machines. The only thing that I've found with it is like the maps for DuckDuckGo are garbage. So I constantly have to go back to Google Maps to look stuff up. Yeah. And also images can kind of be like hit or miss when you're doing a search. So I don't know. I think an average user might not like having to make that compromise. So
their video search is terrible.
I've never even tried the video.
It's great because if there's an age restricted video, you can get past it by watching it on DuckDuckGo. I don't know how they do that.
Pro criminal tip.
But if if there's like a series of them and you're like, oh, I'll just find the next one in the series by searching for, like almost the exact same name, it can't get it. It's not good.
Are you listening, DuckDuckGo engineers? Fix that use case.
Yeah, but the regular
fix the
search is great.
loophole.
I've never had any issues with like just looking other stuff up on DuckDuckGo.
Yeah. So I don't know. I use it. I don't always use it, but if my search is at all risky and I think I'd rather not have Spectrum know about this.
I use it for almost all my searches.
This one is an interesting story. It's both sides have some argument. Obviously, it's an incendiary word that's being thrown around here. But the scary part about it is how quickly they acted without like really even looking at what happened.
Yeah.
This was the same as Google with the AI girls.
Yeah.
These knee-jerk reactions will get you in trouble in the big tech world.
GitHub admits significant mistakes were made in the firing of Jewish employee. Why? Well, we reported on it last week. They said something in global chat about the Capitol riot, and it was just like 4 words. And
They said, watch out for Nazis.
yeah, so...
And then there was a guy who was going to the thing, and he was like, hey, I'm not a Nazi. You can't call me a Nazi. And the HR department, I guess, was like, well, he's right. You can't do that. But then this guy was Jewish, and he was like, I'm Jewish, and I can prove to you with these screenshots that Nazis were at the Capitol riots.
Yeah, and it's like, I did see the Nazi flag flying in a couple of those pictures. Our monetization is
That's right.
gone.
Oh,
It's
wow.
gone. Whoops.
So they're going to hire him back if he'll come back, but he might just go call a lawyer. So we'll see. Sure, we'll have a follow-up on that. Another player has entered the space game. They got a little bit different way of doing it, but hey, satellites are still getting put in the sky, and that's what matters.
Virgin Orbit launches rocket off a 747 aircraft, puts 9 satellites in space. If you're the pilot of that 747, you got to be a little bit nervous, right?
You think he was watching the Challenger footage the night before?
It's like I'm in a thin aluminum straw filled with jet fuel, and there's a rocket on top of me. What could possibly go wrong?
They probably run those fuel tanks pretty empty on that flight. Don't you think?
Yeah,
it's
probably.
just up and back down. But these satellites were student satellites. They weren't anything important, which is probably why they were on the test run. But they all made it up there. Everything worked great. So that's cool. Another competitor in the space game is never a bad thing. Moving on to the robot section. Krista, I really love this building design. We'll talk about that afterwards. But China, they have long been known to lag a little bit in the field of AI. Even though when it comes to technology, it's such a high-tech place. For whatever reason, they can't get their head around advanced AI, and they're looking to change it.
This Chinese lab is aiming for big AI breakthroughs. China produces as many artificial intelligence researchers as the U.S., but it lags in key fields like machine learning. The government is hoping to make up grounds. The idea is basically everybody's going to live in this compound. I mean, not really, but you know what I mean. It's an enormous compound. They're going to work on all sorts of things like GPT-3. Like they describe GPT-3 without calling it GPT-3. At least that was my takeaway.
Well, that's going to be their version of it, which means they're going to steal all that technology.
Steal, borrow, appropriate some researchers. It could go any which way.
So, Krista, this building,
Right.
do you like it?
Yeah, it's all right. I like the big modern glass. It's a little bit like brutalist as well, where it's it's got the big heavy
It's
lines.
communist
and
China.
Yeah,
It looks kind of like a computer from the 80s.
What
it
are
does
those?
with the tan color.
What are those lines? Are those
Windows, I thought.
holes or vents or something?
I thought they were windows.
Like at the top.
But these are big windows. Those would be small windows, right?
Yeah.
It could just be like crenellations or something to give it more visual interest, so it's not just like one blank facade.
Could be. Well, we need some F's in the chat. There's still people who don't want to be called chat, and I'm sorry. You're the chat. Even though it's not a live chat, you're still the chat.
You're the chat.
And we need F's in that chat because a hero is no more.
Mars Digger bites the dust after 2 years on the red planet. Scientists in Germany spent 2 years trying to get their heat probe, dubbed the mole, to drill into the Martian crust. It did not.
So the way I understand it, see if you took this the same way, they expected, like with a screw or a drill, the threads need to get purchase in whatever it is. Like if you're starting a screw, it's real hard at first, and it's like, oh, once the threads get in there. Apparently the Martian soil is too airy and light, and it can find no purchase for its drill grooves.
Yeah.
So they were never able to get it down there. They tried to hammer it this last time. I think they just burnt most of the whatever they had left in battery. It's like, come on. Couldn't do it.
Man, that's kind of disappointing, isn't it? That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
Just sitting on the surface of Mars.
Well, that might mean that the surface of Mars is basically rock with a thin layer of dust.
I don't think they got down far enough to find anything but the useless sandy, like you just can't drill it.
It's like here where it's like, I'm going to dig up something from my garden. Oh, I've hit bedrock after an inch.
Yeah. And NASA, they are trying to get back into the rocket game. They don't want to be outdone by all these private companies. That's embarrassing. They got the full weight of the U.S. government behind them, right?
Glorified cheerleaders, I think is what I said.
But
NASA fires a test of the SLS rocket ahead of the move to Florida, but the engine shut down early. So they were hoping for at least a 4-minute test. It was designed to last 8 minutes. It made it just about a minute.
The software, they knew there was a problem, but they were like, all right, let's just let it run. Maybe it'll be okay. And the software said, no, I don't think so.
Yeah, it was like a problem with rocket number 4, but that's okay. Like if it was just a problem with rocket number 4, it would have kept running, but there was some other issue. They're analyzing the data now.
Those clouds are just like mesmerizing.
You think Musk had himself a nice little chuckle? Maybe a glass of wine?
Yeah.
So you read that?
Yeah. It is funny though. I mean, like you remember a couple of years ago when people were like, we've got the battery breakthrough, and he's like, no, you don't. And then sure enough, they didn't.
I saw 2 battery stories this week while I was putting these stories together, and I'm like, I'm not putting them in there. You're lying to me. There's
Every time.
Yeah. It's always fun when AI tries to do something new, or it takes human knowledge as we know it and is not given any rules about how to apply that knowledge, and it comes up with something crazy. We've seen a lot of this. This is one of the most functional I think we've ever seen.
Google used artificial intelligence to create 2 new mashup desserts based on baking search data. Meet the khaki.
It's a cakey.
Khaki.
Oh.
Why would it be khaki?
I don't know. Half cake, half cookie. And the breaky, half bread, half cookie.
I don't know why, but breaky sounds delicious to me.
The description of both of these sound delicious. It's like a cake, but it tastes like a cookie. It's like, I'm down for that.
Oh, that's just a Pinterest photo. So there is, I guess that's the cakey, cookie and cake, and there's the recipes if you want to try these for yourself.
Maybe we can get the Twitch fans to bake that and then mail it to us, because I'm too lazy to do that.
Oh, these requires yeast. Meh.
Well, I thought you wanted to show off your fancy kitchen. What better way?
Maybe in a couple of weeks
to make a cakey.
Maybe in a couple of weeks once I'm less busy.
Another
The
AI.
cake doesn't require yeast. The breaky does.
Which one did you prefer, Krista? You're a big baker these days.
Yeah, but we don't use yeast for any of the breads we make.
Oh.
We have sourdough, which just uses like yeast in there, and then I do beer bread as well.
Is that a moral stance that you're taking? Like, why wouldn't...
It's just a pain in the butt to like actually like get hold of, and it's like one more extra step, and it's like,
oh, is there still a big... Can you still not buy it?
I haven't checked in a while, but it was hard to find at the start of
I think it's okay
everything.
now.
Yeah.
So Facebook has another AI, but this one is not looking for bread recipes. This one is basically spying on your medical data.
Yeah.
I don't know about this.
This left me with more questions. Facebook uses AI to predict if patients in the pandemic will need more care. Using X-ray images, 3 AI models Facebook developed could help hospitals decide how to allot resources as the number of cases rise. All right, so the first question is, why was Facebook involved with this?
The other question is, what's the morality of that kind of triage in terms of like, if I go and I'm healthy, I'm not young, but I'm probably on the young end of people who would be threatened by that. And they're like, oh, sorry, there's 5 guys ahead of you who are way worse. Go back home.
Oh, no, it's literally already that way.
Yeah.
Even just like, I have something, I'm sick at an inconvenient time is already very much a game of numbers. Is like,
I know somebody who they're trying to get a surgery,
yeah,
but it's not critical, but they are in pain.
Yeah, they're just like, no.
It's been, I mean, it was like December last year they were trying to do that, and it still hasn't happened.
Yeah. We had that story a couple of weeks ago about somebody's surgery that was bumped because it was non-life threatening and they died of it.
Wow. And this one is just sort of a speculation, but it's hard to argue with, right? Can you offer any counterpoints to this?
The only counterpoint let's do the headline. Calculations show that it will be impossible to control a super intelligent AI. The idea of AI overthrowing humankind has been talked about for many decades, but we're just not going to be able to control it. All right. So the good news is that like GPT-4 or 5 or 6 or whatever Google is working on that has that trillion parameter model, consciousness is not going to arise out of those models.
No, but I mean, they're not talking about that.
Well, it would be possible for a human being to build an AI that's basically like infect every computer on the entire planet Earth, and, it would go to town looking for vulnerabilities, problems in code, side channel attacks.
I don't think you're taking in the scope of their argument, though, because they're literally arguing, you're analyzing this as if you understand it. But they're saying, like, if this is a black box, like many of them are, and it gets to the point where even we don't understand it and it's just doing its own thing, that's where it gets scary.
I mean,
it's probably, we might not see it in our lifetime.
Yeah, okay. If we've advanced to that point, then okay, maybe. But even like the GPT-3, like, it's not enough of a black box that we won't figure it out eventually. Like the physics thing, I'm really excited about the AI that has the quick way to calculate the model of the universe, because it obviously knows some math or knows some parameters or knows something we don't. Because like, if you look at special relativity and like the components of the equations that Einstein came up with at non-relativistic speeds, it basically just becomes Newtonian physics. And once you see that, it's like, oh, brilliant. Yeah, that's it. That makes perfect sense. And an AI has already seen, the relativistic component of the Newtonian thing, but for some cosmological scale equation. But we haven't figured out what it saw, just that it's doing the calculations quickly and more efficiently than anything else. So yeah, it is a black box, but we just have to reverse engineer it to kind of figure it out.
Assuming it'll let you reverse engineer it.
I mean, those models, we don't have computers that have enough RAM and computational horsepower, even in the supercomputers, to.
But again, you're limiting this by what you know.
Yeah, if it's like 5 or 10 years from now, who knows? Google's tensor processing cores, like they're doing custom silicon, no idea what's going on there. That could lead to something scary, maybe.
Well, Friday, I guess we're coming with social media?
Nonsense?
Yeah.
We haven't done social media.
Yeah, we did robot today.
All
What
right.
a strange week.
That is a weird week. We usually don't do social media at the very end.
That's
the way it fell.
It's one of the least strange weeks we've had in
In
many
years.
weeks.
In recent memory. It's true.
We do have a lot of news stories, though.
Yeah, it seems like the news has switched off of one topic and back onto a myriad of topics.
Oh, Lord.
But anyway, we'll see you then.
Click. We're here. It's January 29th. It's the end of the month. And today we're doing design, social media, which is weird, and then we're doing nonsense because it's Friday.
2 design stories this week. I don't know if we've ever had 2 design stories before.
We have. Not
But
recently.
This one, I didn't bother to look it up, but I was trying to, in my mind, imagine what the old one looked like.
Here, I'll read the headline first. Kellogg's is changing Mr. Pringle's look for the first time in 20 years. So the old one, he had like a sheen in his eye, and the can had like all these really busy background graphics, and it looked very 2000s, which is when it was made. And I quite like this. I know some people have said like, oh, he looks kind of sad now, but I feel like it is a nice balance between, you know, like being minimal, but also being recognizable as Pringles.
You think he's got kind of a little bit more of an anime look now? I get that feel from it.
I think he's got the look of somebody who has suffered, but is very stoic in the face of memories of that suffering.
See, I think he just looks more like a vintage sort of illustration. Like if this was screen printed and you could see like the halftone, it would feel way vintage because it's such a simple illustration. His
eyebrows are as high as they are to throw you off the fact that you would otherwise immediately know he's dead inside.
The arthritis in his left knee just feels like it's on fire, but he'll never let the grandkids see it. And in another interesting design story, I was very confused about like exactly. I understand the purpose of it, but they said it was only up for like 20 minutes or something like that. Do you understand that part, Krista?
No, I also thought it was up for longer, but maybe it was just an installation.
Just a big statement? I don't know.
Yeah. Pink seesaws at U.S.-Mexico wall win design award. This is kind of like, I read this headline earlier this week and I was like, that's kind of like some boring dystopia kind of content, which maybe that's what they were going for.
Well, the article says this was 10 years in the making, and it's like, I am in the wrong business.
Right.
You can put that together in a weekend.
Yeah.
Welding and then painting.
So I guess they have a picture here of the Mexican border guards. I guess they took this down because it was obviously going to be against the rules. But
it's in good fun. It's good. We need this as an international team building exercise.
I saw one comment on it that was like, now they're just going to use it as a catapult to get over the wall.
I think they took it down. I think it's gone.
Yeah, it only lasted. It lasted long enough to get the pictures, and that's it.
10 years for that.
Yeah.
Well, Elon Musk, we all know that he is very active on Twitter. Very active on Twitter. And in all, I think that it's been bad for him. He probably shouldn't use Twitter, but oh boy, does he love it. And traditionally, one of the best ways to talk about how bad your Tesla was and get some results was to tweet him. But that might not be the case anymore.
Tesla is hiring people to handle complaints. People tweet at Elon Musk. The new CEO may no longer be the company's customer service department on Twitter. Seems good.
So they got this job posting.
That seems like that would be positive for his quality of life, but maybe he'll miss it and fire the person who did it.
But it could be rough on the person doing the job.
Yeah.
It's going to take a lot of abuse, I would think. I'm sure that Tesla customers are not the most pleasant people.
Not universally, but probably a few.
Here's another of these stupid NBC News.
Yeah, it's like halfway down.
Who did this? What is wrong with you?
Some user experience person was like, look, my magnum opus, and we're just crapping all over it.
It's terrible. But anyway, this is about Facebook, and there was some speculation with the whole Trump thing, and it was like, hey, we're just going to silence him for now so he can't do any damage. But no, it doesn't seem like that's the case.
Facebook has no plans to lift the Trump ban, sources say. So that's it. That's the article.
What is the original story here? More inauguration, but a different inauguration article.
Yeah, see, this is not great design.
How easy would it be to find what you're looking for on this website?
It's exhausting. I'm so frustrated by it.
Do you think NBC News, how many, like, we should probably set an over-under right now for NBC News reverting this design after they start analyzing their data, and it's like, wow, we are hemorrhaging visitors like crazy.
I don't think it's as short as you think it is.
That little header, that's an H1. That's a header tag. That's supposed to be the title of the page. In fact, they have multiple H1s, which is an accessibility issue.
No, it's because they're stuffing those little articles in as they get posted in this one massive thread.
But you shouldn't use multiple H1s on one page. That should be an H2. Also, it should just be bigger because it feels like it's just bold text.
It should also be a distinct URL.
Yeah.
That's the permalink, Ryan. It's the permalink.
Parler was unceremoniously deplatformed in every single way. And for the most part, the country cheered it, which is a little disturbing, no matter what their content might have been. But they're kind of back, but not really.
Parler seems to be sliding back into the internet, but not into mobile. So this talks about how a company in Russia was going to help them host. However, the IP block that they were assigned may be repossessed by the Internet Name and Number Authority, one of the Internet Name and Number Authority, or somebody that it was licensed to. So they may have the servers, but they may not have any IP addresses.
And they're certainly not getting back on the app stores.
Yeah. Although you can do the mobile app. I like the Android mobile app where you can add a web page as an app to your home screen. That's pretty good for something like this. That's all you really need.
But they hate that.
They do hate that because they can't do the horrible analytics.
Well, I was going to say, too, do you think that the average Parler user would know how to do that?
I don't
just add
know.
the screen.
I don't know what the Parler demographic is.
I think it's mostly older folks.
I mean, it's right wing, I guess. But it was funny that a lot of the people at the Capitol were, like, dude, you're too old to be storming the Capitol. Come on. I guess.
Don't you have anything else to live for?
I guess patriotism and tyranny know no ages, huh? If you are a developer and you've been thinking to yourself, God, I want to be part of the startup world. I want to have a half-baked idea, get millions of dollars from idiots, and then just let it die and retire. This may be one of the best times in history because you see all this outrage, although it's running out. You have to strike while the iron's hot because the outrage machine doesn't last that long. But the outrage over big tech and social media is creating huge opportunities.
CryptoCat author gets insanely fast backing to build P2P tech for social media. You remember CryptoCat? There were all these cats. They weren't really cats. They were like cat caricatures, but really they were just cryptography keys, I guess is the best way to describe it.
Is that the Ethereum thing? I thought that was different.
No, it's like you could have two different cats and you could breed them, and then it's like a Tamagotchi on the blockchain, on a blockchain. But yeah, they're going to do peer-to-peer, which is something that Twitter has said that they've wanted forever.
CryptoCat, an end-to-end encrypted desktop chat app? I don't think that's the same as the cats that you're thinking of. Maybe it is. Maybe it was a different part of that. Anyway, he got $100,000 just overnight. He said, I have no proof of concept, nothing. It was just like, I got this idea, decentralized, and people just threw money at him. So
sounds reasonable.
He could just disappear and like no one would know about it.
That could go either way. He could disappear and no one would know about it because he took the money and ran, or it could be because of Zuckerberg's assassins.
Either one.
WhatsApp, as we talked about in the earlier thing, they are really, really powerful when it comes to markets like India and China and Africa. And I mean, it's just everybody uses it. It's their main mode of communication. So when you try to take them on, you need a lot of money, but you also need a decent product.
SoftBank backed WhatsApp rival Hike goes on distribution offline.
It's dead
in India.
Rip Hike.
Oh, that's the one that had the high logo. Yeah.
The Indians love their WhatsApp. I don't know who's gonna disrupt that for them. So the deplatforming continues, and I feel like this is definitely going to be an excuse to just shut whoever you don't like up. And it's not a good thing, even though in this case, it's maybe not a bad argument. Maybe some stupid stuff coming out of this gal, but the slope is so slippery.
Twitter temporarily suspends Rep. Marjorie Taylor Greene for election misinformation. This is a great story, not to talk about the story itself and the Twitter and all this other kind of stuff. This is a great story to talk about because for what she said, I don't think that there should be anybody that believes what she said. And so I think that it would be safe to memorialize that forever on Twitter. Like, look at how blatantly dishonest somebody was. But that's not the effect. The effect is, Twitter's allowing this to stay up. There must be some truth to this.
When you say, I don't believe anybody should believe anything that she says,
in the not anything that she said, what she said that got her taken offline.
Well, I'll agree with you that maybe we shouldn't believe anything she says, but could you not say the exact same thing about Joe Biden and Donald Trump?
Not to this extent, not yet.
I
mean, the stuff that she was saying was like up is down and black is white.
She's a big QAnon gal.
With the presidential Twitter account, I know that they archive all the tweets and like put them in the Library of Congress, which is absurd to think about. Do they do that with all representatives too?
Probably.
Like, is there an archive of her crazy tweets somewhere, even though they've been deleted now?
I would be surprised if they're not. If it's not official, I'm sure somebody's doing it.
I mean, being able to do that kind of homework on somebody, it's like Exhibit A on, because like if you research somebody and it's like they sound credible now, but you find something like that they were saying 5 years ago, it's like, ooh.
Did you follow the QAnon thing at all in reference to this? So apparently, and I didn't follow it closely, so I'm sure there's some QAnons out there in the audience that will correct this. Don't write 5 paragraphs. We got a 5-paragraph Musk guy. What was it?
QAnon. Don't want to.
You're trying to.
Don't want to set off the thing.
We talked about Nazis earlier.
That's the world we live in now.
But apparently, they believed right up until the moment that something was going to happen. There was even some people who believed that.
Oh yeah, that I saw that
during the inauguration. It was just
like the black helicopters.
Everybody was going to storm in and arrest all of the Biden administration, and they had reactions similar to remember when Hillary lost and the people were just screaming in the streets.
Yeah,
apparently they had that same kind of crisis after that didn't happen.
Well, now the conspiracy, at least based on some of the text threads that I've read, it's now no, Trump is going to be president of a new America, and he's being inaugurated in March.
Oh, Lord.
And right now, Biden rules a different nation called corporate USA.
Well, that's the sovereign citizen type of stuff. That's been
going
on for
but it's
decades.
Bizarre though. And then there was also some thread about like some of our politicians are clones, and I was like, the writers have lost me on that. I don't understand.
Oh, it's the doppelgangers, Krista. It's
the Grolic verse.
Yeah.
AI Dungeon chat. If you're someone who doesn't watch our streams, you should check that game out.
AI Dungeon is kind of a lot of fun, but also deeply horrifying, but also kind of a lot of fun.
So yeah, obviously the political divide is forcing people to flee from social media lest they be deplatformed or have their house burned down or whatever. And these mass exoduses no one really saw this coming, and it can cause problems.
Mass exodus from WhatsApp causes Signal service to buckle under pressure. We reported on this last week, but there's some more information because it's kind of an ongoing thing. This was the privacy policy thing.
It's back now. It's working again. You can still abandon WhatsApp. Don't let that discourage you.
They just couldn't spool up capacity fast enough. Charge up the credit cards. Go. Server.
And when we talk about slippery slopes, the thing about those is
they're slippery.
Once you start, it happens fast.
Apple's App Store removed social media platform Wimkin over calls to violence. The Wimkin founder says he has removed incendiary posts before, and Apple still ejected it anyway.
You ever hear of Wimkin?
Nope, never did.
Totally new to me.
I wonder if they'll reinstate it once he's like, we are responding fast enough. We hired 10 new people to deal with this.
Nah, it'll never be good enough for him. That's just how that works. And again, WhatsApp, this is like we've seen 6 or 7 stories, individual entities just being like, no, we're not going to have it. And of course, the exodus. What do you think their analytics team feels like right now?
I think the exodus was so bad. That's why we see this whiplash-inducing backpedaling.
And this is kind of dumb because sometimes this does. Actually, it's not dumb at all. Because if you just stop for a tiny, tiny amount of time, people will forget.
Yep.
And I think this is the exact amount of time, don't you?
Yep.
Perfectly planned.
Yep.
They know what they're doing.
WhatsApp delays enforcement of privacy terms by 3 months following backlash. They were really careful here. They said, we're not gonna enforce the changes. You guys are upset. Don't worry about it. We're not gonna follow the new policy. They're not changing the policy. They're just not gonna follow it for 3 months. And they're hoping that you didn't hear the for 3 months part, and they're just gonna quietly turn that part back on.
Yikes. Over in China, they now the run-of-the-mill Chinese can't use Twitter, right? Is that still true?
I don't know if it's blocked or not. It goes in and out of
thought
being
it
blocked.
But either way, you can post to Twitter if you are the U.S. Embassy in China. And they tend to say some pretty pro-Communist Party stuff on there, obviously, even though they're supposed to be U.S. And this one, a bit tone deaf, you might say, this tweet.
Twitter removes China-U.S. Embassy post. This is The Guardian in the U.K. Twitter removes China-U.S. Embassy post saying that Uyghur women are no longer, quote, baby-making machines, unquote. Wow.
So the argument, after they broke it all down, they were saying that, no, listen, these people, and we're identifying them by their religion because that's basically what China's doing. These Muslim people, all they do is just breed, and the women don't have any rights. Although Chinese women, not known for having a ton of rights, at least in the recent past. I don't know how it is now. But they're saying that, we have to gender equality and we have to save these women, and these concentration camps that we've got, that's going to do that. They're not going to be slaves to the baby making anymore because they'll be slaves in the concentration camp. That's better.
It was removed.
Yeah.
Sad. Either way.
Very sad.
Moving on to nonsense. And yes, I put this story in nonsense because it's nonsense. Not the first time they tried this. Remember the one in Canada that the pandemic destroyed?
Yeah. The one that was going to be like super analytics on all your data?
And I think that's probably what's coming here, don't you think?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Walmart's e-commerce chief is leaving to build a city of the future. Yeah, it's not going to work out for him. I'm sorry.
Imagine being good at like e-commerce stuff, like running an online store, albeit a very large online store, and then being like, I can build a city. That's fine.
He's calling it a reformed version of capitalism, and there were a lot of follow-up questions, but he's not answering those. He says maybe he'll talk a little bit more about it in the future, but it's going to be revolutionary, and this is what he's going to spend the rest of his life doing.
You think it's going to be one of those like modern version of the crop sharing thing? Remember when like the feudal lord would be like, all right, I'll let you homestead on my land, but you got to give me 80% of whatever you grow.
Serfdom is what you're describing.
And people were like, that sounds amazing.
I bet you saw this headline, so you probably know the answer, but maybe the chat doesn't. Do you know who the biggest owner of farmland is in the U.S.?
Monsanto?
Bill Gates.
Nope.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Who speaks out against that kind of thing? Like, it's weird. What's he going to do with that? Nobody knows. We are, this is in the UK, but here as well, especially in the poorer parts of the US, which is where we live here in good old Kentucky, a lot of kids not only don't have internet access in their home, but they don't have any sort of computer at home either. And some schools will hand those out, but they get destroyed and stuff like that. So what do you do when your kids need just basic computers to learn with? Well, this is not the answer of what to do.
Laptops with suspicious files linked to Russian servers handed to UK children for e-learning. So I guess the lowest bidder here, this is one of the lowest bidder things, had a bunch of laptops. They weren't scrubbed or wiped or anything. Turns out they had some malware on them because they were, the cheapest laptops you can imagine. Probably should have had somebody in IT scrub them, reformat them, redo them, something before handing them out to kids.
Well, at least we know they're not installing that school spyware on them, right? Because they're not doing anything.
Yeah.
So that's unfortunate. Yeah. If your kid brings home something from the school, you should probably format it, right? Although, will they let you? Is there like a rule against that?
Sometimes there is. There's that one kid that got in trouble. The police arrested him because he reformatted his laptop. That was a story we did like 2 years ago.
All right, I'll just go back to my default answer. Don't ever have children. Wow. I mean, even if you like children, you can't raise them in this modern society. They won't let you. This one, now, this is a great headline.
Those teenagers are going to get convicted of felony assault.
But this could be fake. It was based on one woman.
It could be fake.
She seemed like a bit of a Karen.
Yeah. Teenagers offer free squirts of hand sanitizer to shoppers in Bradford, but it's super glue. This is the UK. This is probably fake news.
But it's a hell of a prank. I would say that'd be a criminal charge, wouldn't you?
Yeah, or felony.
If it was regular glue, probably not. But maybe super glue seems like that might be harder on your hands.
Yeah. It's definitely going to hurt you in some
Yeah.
way. This is just a great headline, and you read into it, and it's like, oh, well, this one's not a fake story. That's exactly what they describe happened.
In Singapore, a man broke into his friend's home to steal his tortoise and then posted a picture of himself with the pet on social media. Oops.
So he is bipolar, and apparently he believes that the tortoise was given to him. Now, the other guy says that was not the case, that he loves his tortoise. So his way of working through that was to kick in the door, ransack the bedroom, and steal the tortoise. Interestingly enough, he called a locksmith on his way out to fix the door.
Oh, it's just polite.
I guess.
For a split second, the picture here, I thought he was wearing a Level 1 shirt, and I was like, wait, what? But it's just feet.
Oops.
So that's interesting. That's he might get unfriended on Facebook after that. This is a kind of a funny headline, but at the same time, I guess it's devastating for this fellow.
That's legit, yeah.
But my question is, why not just move to mouse and keyboard?
Thumb injury forces top gamer to retire at 25. Yeah, it's like he just can't play through the pain anymore. They've got the vertical mouse.
Could you? I mean, if you had no thumb, you could still.
Maybe you could 3D print an accessory for him that'll hold it, like a claw or something.
I'm pretty sure I could use a mouse without a thumb.
I like that Logitech's got one you hold like this, and it's pretty comfortable.
Oh yeah, I've seen that. Yeah. Rip Zuma.
Oh yeah, it's Call of Duty. I guess he must be a console player, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, why not just go to PC? Could you not transition into Counter-Strike from that?
You probably could, but you probably wouldn't.
Someone
it would take a long time to rebuild that muscle memory, and then it's like, how far behind you are you compared to other pros in the scene? Like,
but how long has the current Call of Duty even been out? Aren't you relearning it every 3 or 4 years? Or Call of Duty comes out every year now, right?
but I imagine the controls are fixed.
Well, we're losing you.
We didn't get any of that.
Oh, I would imagine the controls are similar. Like,
yeah.
Sometimes if I make an adjustment to my mouse even when I'm playing Overwatch, even if it's just a small adjustment, like it takes me a little bit to recalibrate my brain to understand like how my shots are gonna hit or like how much leeway I have. Or
what if you went in
there? I bet
and,
when you're playing at that level, like it's probably even more noticeable.
What if you went in there and loosened up the springs so that those sticks were just hair trigger sticks?
Just ruined him.
Well, there's somebody in the comments that's already replied. It's like, oh, Ryan, that would be like asking an Olympic medal gymnast to take up pole vaulting. It's like, okay.
Still
or
seems
maybe
like
a gymnast to put on sneakers while they're running around on the floor. It would be weird.
I feel like because the game's changed so rapidly. That guy's 25 years old when you think he started. He wasn't playing the game he's playing now when he started.
Yeah.
The what do they call it when you move to another country? Digital nomad. It's become super popular during the lockdown because everybody's working remotely, and so some people are like, "Hey, I'm going to go to a place where the cost of living is a fraction of what it is here, and live on a beach, and I'm going to still do my marketing job or whatever." But when you do that, you have to be careful about the standards and the mores of the place where you go because they might not want you.
American influencer who sold ebook on moving to Bali is being deported. An American woman who moved to Bali last year is facing deportation after promoting the sale of an ebook she wrote with her girlfriend in order to help others move to Indonesia.
Well, so if you continue reading, like at first I was like, are they upset because she's gay or like, but no, apparently it's because she's promoting like, just come move here, even though they're trying to like shut down the borders because of the disease.
But it's also worse than that. Turns out she's not paying Bali taxes. She's
Ooh.
only paying U.S. taxes.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not going to work.
And they definitely don't like how outspoken and, her ebook is apparently, they feel like that's taking advantage of their country. They don't want Westerners just coming there to sort of exploit them.
And not pay taxes.
Yeah. So, Probably not. If you're reading that ebook right now and you're like, yeah, this is for me, I would take a second look at maybe another book.
Maybe one about tax law in Indonesia.
Yeah. Or even just an Indonesian accountant. Talk to one of them. The Capitol riot, as we talked about earlier, they are systematically tracking down every single one of those people. If you just want to know about the surveillance state, although I guess in the Capitol building, okay, maybe it makes sense, right? Why shouldn't everything in the Capitol building be watched?
Yeah.
But you cannot hide from the modern surveillance machine. That's the point that you have to take here. However, in some cases, people did really, really stupid things to make it easy on them.
Capitol rioter arrested after sending selfie to girlfriend's brother.
I think we lost the
federal
video driver
agent.
again.
What?
We lost
it's
we lost
hung.
the video driver again.
It'll come back. Just give it a second. Look,
There
back.
it is.
Oh, it's an internal error. No one cares.
Are we still running?
We're still running.
All right.
Look at that. All right. You probably should do that one again.
Capitol rioter arrested after sending a selfie to girlfriend's brother, a federal agent. The DOJ says Thomas, well, that's fine. Yeah, it's like, look at me. I was like, okay, arrested.
So that picture
Bruh.
right there is going to cost him his freedom for some amount of time.
And probably get a felony.
How many times have we said it? Don't take your phone to crimes.
I don't know. There are a couple of people that have convincingly argued that they were invited in, but I wonder if that was Capitol Police de-escalating or something hinky.
I feel like a little common sense there might have been like, maybe I shouldn't run in here.
Would you? I mean, if you've invited it, so let's just set off the comment section. Huh?
Sorry, I didn't mean to. I was just
Compare and contrast. Yes, they did let them in. They just sort of stepped to the side and they were like, "Oh, hey, come on in." Compare that to people sieging the walls back during the summer, and somehow this was way worse.
You talk about your hate naps, and when it was the healthcare thing, and it's like, I'm really not a big believer in I don't think we could get it right. I mean, it sounds nice for the universal healthcare thing, but there were a lot of people on disability that showed up at the Capitol because they felt like they needed to be there. They were not handled with compassion. And that was a much more aggressive response than this, and that's even more sickening because I definitely had to have a hate nap after the whole healthcare thing.
What'd you say, Krista?
You know what would have kept some of these people from getting caught by the surveillance stuff?
Not having a
Wearing a
phone?
mask.
Oh yeah, that was a big thing where none of them were wearing masks. But still,
You played yourself.
it's no one went and tracked down all those summer riders that did the exact same thing. They didn't get inside the building, but that's because they were actively being fought at the gates, whereas these guys were, like you say, they just kind of let them in.
There was
They're like vampires. You have to be invited in.
There was a judge in Michigan, a bunch of people that were arrested and had court dates in Michigan from this kind of thing in Michigan. The judge just looked at what happened in the Capitol, and he's like, I'm dismissing all these charges for lack of evidence. Gone.
Well, it's as you can, if you look at the comments right now, I'm sure that you'll see how dividing this is, and it's not.
Sorry.
It's politics at every level is being split down the middle. It's not. Of course, we got our Q representative now.
Can't we just be reasonable human beings to one another? That's all I'm asking for.
Well, guess what? When those politicians go to social media, becomes a bigger problem.
Town is under fire after mayor's social media post. So there, he's running the flag at half mast.
You should read the tweet.
Town of Brewston, is that right?
Yep.
Grieves for our republic and our loss of freedoms. We mourn the victims of the Chinese plague and those that have suffered its
depredations. Do we need to get you a Krista?
Yeah, I've got
I'm actually having to lean forward to read as well.
I got to fix my prescription.
We pray that God delivers and restores us, and that we do not fall to the clutches of communism. So he's talking about Biden, and people were so angry about this that they're now lashing out at the town itself.
I think that it means that all sides of government have failed when people feel that it really is that divided. Because the MO of both sides is really not a lot different.
Well, it's the whole, it's the sports team thing. And
But no one realizes it's the sports team
But
thing.
I think people do realize it, and on some level, but they like it.
Oh, the boiler snake. He wants his say.
He spent some time in Bradenton, and he doesn't like to talk about it.
I thought it was Brewston.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Brewston. Yeah, he was driving through, and they pulled him over. And
Driving.
yeah, and then they knocked out his tail light with the thing.
They pulled him over and they said, "I'm sorry, sir. You can't drive without legs." And he won that civil rights case. This is a fun headline just because it shows the madness. This is a young 19-year-old Hellcat, and she was looking to cause trouble.
Robert tried to flee in an ambulance, but couldn't drive. Hellerton cops say. Yeah, so she stole some cigarettes and Mentos from a gas station, and there was an ambulance just right outside. They leave the keys in those. She had no idea how to drive.
My favorite part about this story is that she didn't steal the Mentos until she was confronted for stealing the cigarettes. And then as she stormed out, she took as many Mentos as she could get.
I really don't get people. I really don't
Yeah, I know.
understand.
Imagine smoking in 2021.
They didn't make it clear. Do you think are modern ambulances still manual shift? Is that what it was that stopped her? I didn't get an impression.
No, I didn't. I just don't think she knew how to drive.
Wow. That's impressive.
Is it? We know several people who are older than that who don't know how to drive.
Do they not know how to, or they just not
Well-
want to?
Well, the one I'm thinking of, he knows how to drive. He just doesn't have a license. The other one I'm thinking of, I don't know. If she knows how.
Well, China and India, not best friends right now.
No.
Not by a long shot. Not having a good time with each other, and they're in this sort of little weird thing where they're just banning each other's stuff.
They need to practice de-escalation.
The app stores are it's like Vietnam in the app stores right now for India and China. It's a proxy war, and now it's pouring over into other types of commerce.
Why is Gujarat? I probably didn't.
Gujarat.
I probably didn't say that correctly. Is renaming dragon fruit to camellam. I also probably said that wrong too.
Oh, Black Betty.
Yeah, I was about to make
Camellam?
the same joke. That's got to be the title, right?
So, dragon, they feel, is too Chinese.
Makes sense. But the guy is specifically on record as saying, no, this isn't political. We're just renaming it. Yeah, it's totally political.
I still think Bombay is better than Mumbai. Fight me.
Istanbul's not Constantinople.
It's been, well, I mean, I guess there's more to that. Maybe not.
We're going to kill almost everybody in this city, and then change the name, and now a different demographic is going to live here.
If you conquer that much of the world, do you not deserve a city?
You should build a new one. You shouldn't take an old
He
one.
did build a new one.
Well.
He expanded his empire. It's been a long time since we have heard this name, and I miss it. I mean, from time to time, you'll still see a decent meme. But for the most part, I think the world has moved on. But the powers that be still consider it to be a huge, huge offense.
DC police investigating Pepe the Frog graffiti as a possible hate and bias crime. Pepe defaced a Bernie Sanders mural.
Now they're
Why?
saying...
Who cares? Like,
What?
We didn't get that, Chris. What was it?
I was like, who cares? Like, I don't.
I don't think Pepe's hate crime.
See, Christy, you're not picking up on the obvious thing here because your mind didn't immediately go to this, and that's, that's a good thing for you. But Bernie Sanders is Jewish, and they feel that Pepe is hateful in that. Like, the ADL is really down on Pepe. But here's the thing about it. They pointed out, I don't know if I can quickly see the quote here, but it was, motivated by bias or political or religious affiliation.
That's a hate crime?
See, I assumed
Political?
it was more about like, oh, a politician had their mural defaced and not the other thing.
That might be the actual motivation for it.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a crime that they're defacing something that's not theirs, but I'm not sure it rises to the level of hate crime.
Is a Bernie Sanders mural not politically motivated in its own right? I mean, it's somebody's property. They can do what they want with it. I'm not arguing it shouldn't exist. But to call it a hate crime, it's vandalism.
Yeah, that's what I'm confused about.
Yeah. Meanwhile, I guarantee you, I don't know this. I can't point to it, but so if you look at all, I'm sure you'll find politicians defending graffiti that happened back during the summer because it was like for freedom.
Oh, this marginalized groups need an outlet.
Exactly.
For their,
Pepe lovers are marginalized. Pepe lovers need to unite.
I think they already have, and that's
That's Parler.
Listen,
that's a little bit of the problem.
I'm kind of upset that they co-opted that because I always liked the Pepe memes
Well, that was the whole point, is to take something innocent and make it not.
and make it into something terrible. And it's like, but Pepe was funny, dang it! Like,
I saw this number, and I was like, "Oh, is Bitcoin down that far?" No, that's the Dow Jones Industrial Average. Bitcoin's higher than that. Now, this is a blast from the past because we got so much joy out of this story. I think the whole world did.
Yeah, the algorithm will no longer permit that.
And
Joy is outlawed.
I guess she got some cash from this. You know, I mean, it was a great PR thing. I don't know if it was on purpose, but now this is not the kind of PR you want when people think of that part of your body.
Again, I think this is probably fake news, but we'll see.
It is only one person reporting it. I didn't see any video or pictures. And wouldn't you try to get? I guess in the moment you're just like freaking out, so you don't have time.
yeah.
But the aftermath.
Well, Gwyneth Paltrow's vagina candle explodes in UK woman's home, according to this report.
I like how you drop your voice a little bit as if the AI.
It knows.
Yeah.
It knows. It knows. So according to them, it just exploded. Yeah. I mean, that's a stock photo.
She is 48.
$75 is a lot to pay for a candle.
She has that whole website. It's like a lifestyle website called Goop. And it's full of like things that are way too expensive for people with more money than sense.
They described the what it smells like, and I have to press exit out on that because it was like sandalwood and some other things.
Are you saying that the candle doesn't smell like that, or that Gwyneth doesn't smell like that?
Gwyneth doesn't smell like that.
Oh, you'll never
Scent
know.
notes include geranium, citrusy bergamot,
Yeah.
cedar absolutes juxtaposed with damask rose and ambrette seed.
Yeah, exactly.
How fantastic.
I don't think that's true.
How fantastic would it be if somebody sued her
False
over
advertising.
and fast forward to a court case where they're like holding a Q-tip in front of the jurors? It's like, I don't know. What do you think?
Well, no, I was thinking something else is like they'll have to hire an expert witness that's a kind of sommelier for that sort of thing. It's like, does that even exist?
We can all smell. I mean, you just have to compare it to the real thing. They got like a little curtain.
A little A/B test. Yeah.
She might settle before she put herself through that.
Yeah. This has got to be some kind of manufacturing defect, or they did something.
Or a defect with Gwyneth.
Yeah, that happens sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Our last story is, it's hilarious just because, first of all, how do we not know this up until now? But at the same time, I think back, I loved dinosaurs when I was a kid. I think everybody did, right? I mean, it's not unique. But you had the little plastic dinosaur toys. You had that VHS tape of the claymation dinosaurs that everybody had.
Yeah.
And I just love dinosaurs, but never once did young Ryan consider how they have sex. It never occurred to me. Now in Jurassic Park, we saw their poop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we didn't even know this when that was made. Think about that.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
This fossil reveals how dinosaurs pee-pooped and had sex. So it's kind of like birds, because birds only have one hole for that, which is a little unusual in the rest of the animal kingdom.
Is it cloaca?
I think so. Yeah.
That sounds right. Yeah.
They were saying how like this morphology of their hole is different than anything that we see in the animal kingdom now. So it was probably selected out for evolution.
They all have a shape.
Yeah.
And they pointed out that some of them are slits, some of them are vertical slits, some of them are like the wavy, like, I don't like this face. This one's a V.
Yeah.
Which is closest to the alligator.
Some of them are happy faces.
If you scroll down, they have a. So they describe the dinosaur as a Labrador-sized dinosaur, and the animation has some very Labrador-style behavior where they're sniffing each other's butts.
Yeah.
Rue loves to sniff other dogs' butts.
Well,
It's disgusting.
my cats are big butt sniffers too. I think that's just an animal thing because the glands are back there, you know.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I don't know.
I will say that one of the highlights of the Minecraft server was the giant chicken, and it did have the cloaca.
It did. I was about to actually make that same comment.
Was that where it dispensed the fried chicken?
I don't know. I think it was supposed to at some point. I don't know if they got that done.
There was a different. There were multiple. There were 2 ducks under the bridge by the spawn point, and then there was the giant chicken statue. That when you like pressed it, it would kill the chickens.
You know, I thought that there was a lot of. First of all, you've made your picks, Krista, and of course your video went up, but I think a lot of your picks were controversial. And I will say, based on what I've talked to you about, you know, like the top 3, the top 4, and why you chose those over someone else, I think you were maybe a bit of a size queen when it came to the builds.
Yeah,
A little bit. I had a couple that were smaller, but like they're just the amount of effort that goes into terraforming, collecting materials, and then like actually doing the crafting for the materials and placing all of them. I mean, it is going to be more for a larger build.
There were a couple people that were real salty too. That were like, you know,
there were some people, and I wonder. This might sound crazy, but do we need to call for a recount?
Oh, what?
A recount.
No.
We might have
we
to-
actually. Oh, you continue.
We might have to throw this election out. That's what I'm saying, Chris.
we got some more mouse pads and stuff. Those are perfectly fine consolation prizes. It's totally
Continue.
okay.
For next year, we were talking, and there may be a chance of doing a creative server next year, but nothing concrete yet. Just a thought we had, so that way everyone kind of starts off with the same amount of things, and then they can build as big as they want.
One of the programmers was thinking about because we had a little bit of you know, we had like the community thing, and then we also had some materials theft. So you know, I think you saw it because you commented on it. You said something about
Yeah, it was minor. We didn't have like a ton of that, but there were a few instances where we had to like.
you had the homestead
Yeah.
thing for anti-griefing, but some of those were just so elaborate that
Yeah.
and so like the socialist utopia sort of falls apart, or I think is how you described it. And
All right. Yeah. Well, they built all these public works, but you can't. Those are public, and people are like tunneling through them and stuff. And we're like, "What? No, I made this." And it's like, "Oh yeah, that's why that doesn't work."
I think I don't know if there's an existing plugin for this, but one of the early Devember projects next year might be a Minecraft plugin that lets you put some material down in something like that, but it's actually a booby trap. So if somebody goes to steal something, it explodes and bans them from the server.
Oh, I don't know about the band part, but there are ways to rig up. It's called a trapped chest, and basically when you open it, it sends a redstone signal, and then you can hook it up to whatever redstone system you want. But I have seen that where you like open the chest and then there's TNT underneath it and it explodes.
Did you see that Sprout admitted he cheated for the Picard statue, basically?
Yeah,
Oh.
I kind of figured.
He did the 3D model of it.
He
though.
took. So this is a 3D model. Obviously, this is. Well, you didn't 3D print this, did you?
Mm-mm.
But somebody did. Or actually, is that?
No, that one's real, but there are 3D printable versions of it.
So he took the 3D model of this and he ran it through like Blender or something
Yeah, which told him
And-
where to put the blocks.
and voxeled it.
Yeah.
But and he didn't win.
That's
although,
still a lot of work.
who was the
This
guy
was
that,
next to one of the winners, but he wasn't a winner.
one of the winners was so nice. Which one was that? Ursavis?
I think it was Techie.
Teki Safa. One of them actually
Yeah.
donated their prize to Sprout because Sprout destroyed his video card. But what we didn't know, he's destroyed his video card rendering the cheating. But here, do you not agree? And I mean, you know, it was just the two of us judging. Would you not have given him a Devember prize for that project? I would have.
for the thing.
I would have given him like 4th or 5th place.
I don't think there was programming involved. I think it was using Blender and one of Blender's built-in features.
Yeah. It was still better than some of those projects that just did.
Yeah, I like the Hello World project because it was like, I've got so much ambition, and then you click the link, Hello World, and it's like, oh.
But he destroyed his video card. I think it was a 980 because he was making his Picard cheating stuff.
Well, he's going to be Team Red now.
I wonder how many people you think did that though, Chris, because apparently that's a thing you can do client side.
Yeah, I've heard of that. There was one other that I sort of suspected that maybe it had been done in some way like that. I won't mention which one it was, but I noticed that they didn't have any chests with materials in it. and I thought that was a little suspicious
I don't think it helps with that. It just gives you a template with which to build.
to work with.
Yeah. So it's weird to call it cheating, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah,
He could not freehand
like
that.
yeah, it's an alternative style of building. I have seen people freehand statues in Minecraft before, but not quite that detailed.
And I don't know how we would stop that. It might just be a free-for-all next year.
Yeah, I think we may do a creative server next year. Don't hold me to that, but that's something that's been discussed.
I got to get a life-size version of that made by some art student cheap somewhere for my house. That would be amazing. Just
Get it? Marble.
Yeah, just have it in the in the hallway or something. That'd be funny.
Also, even though they're not technically sponsoring it, we should thank Linode in the context of the Minecraft server, because I think it's going to be up till at least March now.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah,
Probably
so you guys,
longer.
if you saw that stuff and you're like, wow, it's really cool, like you can still go and check it out on the server and build your own thing. The contest is over, but the server's not. So.
There come the griefers.
But don't mess with the ice tunnel. Don't touch the ice tunnel if you go on there. They will get very angry with you if you do that.
Definitely don't do that. All right. We'll see you next week. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.